A normal day unfolds at the two neighboring schools, Kikito and Chidori. Rintaro's gaze drifts toward the windows of the building next door, quietly accepting that the mysteries of the prestigious all-girls school will forever remain unknown to him, especially since the Kikyo girls avoid Chidori boys like the plague. One morning, Sakyo, Sohei, and Ayato get into an argument with two guys from another school. Neither side wants to back down, each blaming the other for getting in their way. Just when things are about to escalate, Rintaro steps in and scares the other group off. It turns out just a look is enough to send them running. He lightly scolds his friends for stirring up trouble, but Suri flips it on him, saying Rintaro was the one who provoked the other guys in the first place. Apparently, they'd mentioned something about Rintaro earlier. As they continue walking to school, Rintaro suddenly remembers where one of them might have seen him before. There had been an incident outside his house, a couple arguing in the street. The girl slapped her boyfriend and stormed off. Rintaro, trying to help, approached the guy to check if he was okay. The poor guy panicked, assumed he was about to get beaten up, and bolted, only to trip and injure himself in the process. His friends listen, unimpressed. Rintaro may be kind-hearted, but with a face like his, most people assume he's ready to murder someone. As they walk, they pass a pair of Kikyo girls, who immediately look down and avoid eye contact. One girl drops her handkerchief. Sohei, wanting to be friendly, picks it up and tries to return it, but the girl glares at him and tells him to just throw it away, not wanting to involve herself with the likes of them. Despite the obvious rejection, Sohei brushes it off. He convinces himself she was just too shy to talk to someone as good-looking as him. With that, the boys head into their own school, a plain, no-frills building standing right next to the fancy Kikyo Academy. Rintaro can't help but reflect on how different the two schools are. Every time they cross paths, the Kikyo girls act like the Chidori boys are radioactive. Chidori itself is a public all-boys school, infamous for being full of idiots and ranked near the bottom in terms of academics and reputation. Kikyo's dislike for Chidori is so intense they even keep their curtains drawn just so they don't have to look at their building next door. While scrolling through his phone, Rintaro gets a notification reminding him he has to work later, so he has to turn down the invitation from his friends. Later that day, rain pours down relentlessly, but Rintaro sprints through it to reach the cafe where he works. Once there, he asks the manager, who is also his mother Kyoko, if it's really okay for him to face customers, worried his looks might scare them off. But Kyoko reassures him that it's fine, there's only one customer he needs to take care of today. Everyone else is busy prepping pastries for tomorrow's event, leaving Rintaro in charge of the counter. As Rintaro sets up the counter, he notices a wet umbrella by the entrance. He glances over to a nearby table and is surprised to see a middle school-looking girl sitting alone. What catches his attention even more is the number of cakes she's already eaten. The empty plates around her are enough to make anyone stare. Noticing his gaze, the girl immediately flushes with embarrassment and begins to choke. Without thinking, Rintaro rushes over and hands her a glass of water. She quickly gulps it down but becomes visibly self-conscious. Before he can say anything, she thanks him for the food and rushes out of the shop in a panic. Left staring after her, Rintaro blames himself for scaring her off. Later that evening, while closing the cafe, Kyoko casually mentions that the girl's name is Kaoruko, and that she's actually a regular. This only adds to Rintaro's guilt, as he worries that she might stop coming because of him. Kyoko, on the other hand, dismisses his self-blame and insists that Kaoruko isn't the type to be scared off easily. With her usual enthusiasm, she declares that cakes are the answer to everything, and that winning Kaoruko back shouldn't be too hard. The next day, Rintaro is still bothered by the incident. During lunch, he finds himself lost in thought, trying to figure out how to apologize or where he might run into her again. When his friends approach, he brushes them off and tells them to go ahead without him. As he walks off, Sohei quietly wonders why Rintaro never opens up about what's really on his mind. After school, Rintaro is lounging in his room when Kyoko bursts in with unexpected news. Kaoruko is at the cafe and wants to speak to him. Still in his casual clothes, he quickly heads downstairs. There he finds her waiting for him. Caught off guard by her presence, he greets her with a bit of awkwardness. Suddenly, she tells him that she'll treat him. To his surprise, he finds himself sitting across from her with a slice of strawberry cake and a drink placed in front of him. Though puzzled, he allows the moment to play out. Kaoruko had apparently come to apologize for her sudden exit the day before. Though he initially tries to refuse the treat, Rintaro notices her stealing glances at the cake. Without a word, he gently slides the plate toward her, offering it back. Despite her initial resistance, the tempting dessert proves too much to ignore. As Rintaro watches her take small, joyful bites, he realizes how surprisingly large her appetite is for someone with such a small frame. When she finishes, Kaoruko explains that she hadn't planned to eat that many cakes. She thought she was alone and safe to indulge, only to be caught mid-binge. What embarrassed her wasn't fear, it was being seen like that. She admits that she had seen Rintaro helping at the cafe before and had always been curious about him. Only then does Rintaro understand she hadn't run away because she was scared. She ran because she was nervous, not because he looked frightening, but because something about him made her heart race. He finds himself thinking about how, on any regular day, most girls would either flinch at the sight of him or look at him with open hostility. Yet Karuko's words had been the complete opposite. The memory of her small confession plays back in his head, and unexpectedly, he feels his face grow warm. Conflicted with the sudden rush of emotions, he stands up and offers to walk her to the station since it's already late. Karuko, realizing how much time had passed, looks surprised but accepts. However, after buying another cake, she decides to walk the short distance by herself, saying the station isn't far. As she walks away, she suddenly turns back. With a smile that seems to light up her entire face, she tells him that she never found him scary, not even once. She thanks him again for the cake and disappears into the night. Unbeknownst to them, two boys standing at a distance observe the interaction, grinning with ill intent. Back in his room, Rintaro stares at cockroaches by his door, burying his face in his arms, his thoughts tangled up. The kindness Karuko showed clashes with the way others usually treat him. All at once, the countless negative comments from his past resurface, remarks that have followed him since childhood. Yet through the noise, Karuko's voice cuts in, soft but sharp enough to leave an impact. For the first time in a while, something in him feels warm. That brief calm is interrupted when Kyoko bursts into his room holding a familiar box. Karuko had apparently forgotten one of her cakes, which Kyoko found left on the street just a short distance from the cafe. Immediately, Rintaro's worry returns. He rushes outside, scouring the nearby streets for any sign of her. He knows it can get dangerous at night and worries that she might have gotten herself in trouble. Not long into his search, he hears his name being mentioned and follows the sound. He finds Karuko cornered by two men. They're asking pointed questions about her connection to him. Rintaro decides to approach them cautiously. Remaining hidden, Rintaro listens closely. The men begin feeding Karuko rumors. They label Rintaro a delinquent, saying his reputation has followed him since middle school. They talk about his current school, calling it a place for troublemakers, and claim that his group of friends is nothing but bad news. Hearing their words crushes something inside Rintaro. He knows Shigori isn't the best school and he isn't perfect, but to hear himself described in such a way leaves him disheartened. But then Karuko responds. She admits the rumors are unsettling, but calmly questions why they judge someone based solely on hearsay. Rintaro perks up at her words. She explains that if they took the time to actually talk to him, they'd see he's nothing like the image they painted. The men refuse, set in their beliefs. Karuko doesn't argue further, but firmly tells them that even if they never speak to Rintaro, they should at least stop spreading falsehoods about him. Judging someone without trying to understand them isn't fair. They release Karuko's arm, but instead of letting her go, one of them raises his fist, ready to strike. Rintaro charges in without hesitation and throws himself between them. Karuko gasps, frozen in shock, as Rintaro shields her with his body. After making sure she's unharmed, he shifts his glare toward the two boys. The instant they meet his eyes, they pale. Terrified, the two quickly back off. Neither dares to look back. Karuko rushes to Rintaro, reaching up toward his forehead, now bleeding from where it struck the wall. She apologizes frantically, blaming herself for his injury. But Rintaro tries to reassure her that the injury wasn't from the punch. He had hit the wall while moving in to protect her, so the injury wasn't as serious as it looked. Then, unexpectedly, he says that the wound was punishment, his own way of apologizing. Deep down, he hadn't believed her words at first, and now she was caught up in trouble just by being associated with him. He lowers his head in a full bow, regret thick in his chest. He apologizes not only for getting her involved, but for underestimating her sincerity. Karuko tries to raise his head, but Rintaro is weighed down by guilt. She had been nothing but kind to him, yet she was the one who suffered. But instead of letting his apology continue, Karuko wipes the blood from his forehead again and tells him something he's never heard before. She doesn't understand why people are scared of him when he's clearly such a kind person. She doesn't accept his apology. Instead, she simply thanks him. In that moment, something shifts. Rintaro, who had long accepted being misunderstood, suddenly finds himself drawn to her words and warmth. He never imagined someone could look at him like this. After years of enduring stares filled with fear or contempt, Karuko's smile feels like a light he had given up on seeing. To ensure she's safe, Rintaro walks her to the station. Once they part, he begins to turn away, ready to go home. But Karuko calls out to him. When he turns back, she's smiling again, inviting him to hang out and eat cake together sometime. Stunned but softened, Rintaro finds himself agreeing. They go their separate ways. Rintaro walks home alone while Karuko waits for her train, still remembering the warmth of Rintaro's protective embrace. The next morning, he arrives at school much earlier than usual, unable to sleep the night before. His thoughts are still full of Karuko. As he stares out the window, wondering when she might pass by the cafe again, something unexpected happens. The curtains on the Kikyo building move. To his surprise, Kaoruko is the one peeking through. For a moment, their eyes meet across the courtyard. Both freeze in surprise. Rintaro quickly pulls the curtains shut, wondering how Kaoruko is in the other building. He had thought she was a middle schooler. Slowly, he realizes Kaoruko is a student at Kikyo, and this discovery may change their dynamic forever. After catching a glimpse of Kaoruko through the Kikyo window, the once quiet school grounds of Chidori begin to fill with students. Shohei starts complaining about how the Kikyo girls keep glaring at him to Rintaro at his seat. Normally, he wouldn't care, but today has been on another level. Every girl he passes shoots him a look filled with disdain that he started feeling on edge. Soon after, Saku and Ayato join them, greeting everyone with a cheerful good morning despite Shohei's glum mood. As they catch up, they reveal that they, too, had received some harsh looks from Kikyo girls earlier that day. This leaves Shohei puzzled as he even questions why anyone would glare at someone as nice and good-looking as Saku. Saku shrugs off the attention but admits that he's never liked how the girls from Kikyo treat them. He's convinced the two schools will never get along. His words make Rintaro zone out as his friends begin to notice his injury in his head, and he only snaps back to reality when he hears Ayato questioning why Rintaro's side of the curtains are drawn shut. Trying to defend his friend, Shohei assumes it's because Rintaro's in a bad mood from seeing the Kikyo building first thing in the morning. But Rintaro denies it with an outburst. His sudden denial catches everyone off guard, and he awkwardly tries to come up with an excuse for his curtains. While everyone seems to buy his excuses, Saku can't help but find it strange. Classes start as usual, but Rintaro's mind isn't in the lesson. He keeps thinking about Kaoruko's shocked expression when she saw him in his classroom. Guilt creeps in as he remembers pulling the curtains shut so abruptly. It must have seemed rude. He wonders if she'll ever come at the cake shop again. He thinks it's for the best if she stops coming in anyway, so she's less involved with him. By the time school ends, Shohei invites Rintaro to hang out, and after checking that his mother doesn't meet him at the cafe, he agrees to join the others for karaoke. When school ends, their group excitedly leave the building, already discussing what songs to sing and what to eat. But before they can leave the school, they find a huge crowd gathered near the gates. Students are whispering, straining to get a glimpse of something or someone outside. Curiosity gets the best of them, so they also join the group to see what the big commotion about. To Rintaro's surprise, it's Kaoruko. She's standing right outside Chidori's gate, clearly waiting for someone. Rintaro instantly recognizes her and turns away, trying to process everything. In the meantime, Shohei charges ahead and confronts Kaoruko, demanding to know why a Kikyo student is outside their school. Due to his gruff voice, she ends up cowering a little. Despite being caught off guard, Kaoruko honestly answers that she's waiting for someone. Rintaro rushes forward, pulling Shohei back and apologizing for the sudden interrogation. But then, unexpectedly, Shohei starts to tear up, admitting that he's not mad, just jealous. He thought it was unfair that someone from their rundown school had managed to get girlfriend. Suddenly, Kaoruko's friends rush toward her, pushing through the crowd and bumping into Shohei in the process as they try to pull her back toward Kikyo's building. The commotion draws even more attention as a group of Kikyo girls gather by their own gate, whispering and wondering why Kaoruko would come all the way to Chidori's side. Shohei, still annoyed from earlier, steps forward and demands an apology for being shoved aside. One of the girls slaps his hand away with a sharp glare before turning back, hurrying toward their building with Kaoruko and Tao. She glances back at Rintaro, her eyes filled with worry as she is pulled away. Students begin making their way home, and Rintaro and his group head toward the karaoke place as planned. Rintaro trails behind them, lost in thought. A part of him wonders if Kaoruko had really come just to see him, but he tries to brush it off, telling himself she might have been waiting for someone else entirely. His friends glance back at him, only to freeze in alarm. They tell him his expression looks scarier than usual. Rintaro touches his face in confusion, slowly realizing what he's feeling might actually be happiness. Embarrassed, he quickly shakes it off and catches up with the group. At the karaoke place, Rintaro remains distracted as Shohei loudly sings in the background. Saku eventually points it out, asking if something's wrong. Ayato and Shohei nod in agreement as they stop their singing and mentions how off he's been all day. Even showing up with an injury had been alarming. As the others wait for an answer, Rintaro debates whether to tell them the truth about Kaoruko. But in his mind, he already imagines how they'd react. In the end, he lies with a smiles, brushing their concerns aside. Ayato and Shohei don't question him further, but tell them that he can talk to them whenever and pass him the mic for the next song. Rintaro takes the mic, and before the song starts, he smiles at Saku, assuring him that everything's fine. Saku nods and lets it go, deciding to join him in singing. Later that evening, as Rintaro heads home, Rintaro notices the cake shop lights still on, despite it being past closing. Curious, he steps inside, only to be greeted by Kaoruko's warm smile and eager eyes. She apologizes for the earlier scene at the school gates, admitting she didn't expect such tension between their schools. Rintaro stammers, quickly insisting she has nothing to apologize for. Before he can say more, his mother enters and scolds him for making Karuko wait and that he should message her the next time. She offers Karuko some cake, and though she politely refuses, her stomach growls loudly in protest. Kyoko bursts into laughter, and Rintaro tries to hold back a chuckle. Karuko turns red, but Rintaro invites her to share the cake with him, his voice unusually gentle. Rintaro quietly observes Karuko as she happily takes bites of her cake, clearly savoring each one. Her expression is peaceful, and for a moment, everything feels calm. Between bites, she pauses and asks about Shohei. Rintaro assures her that he's fine, no worse for wear despite the earlier scene. Curious, he asks what brought her to Chidori's gate. Karuko answers honestly that she had gone there just to see him. She apologizes again for causing such a commotion, but Rintaro immediately tries to stop her from apologizing, accidentally blurting out that he's actually happy to know she had waited for him. The words leave his mouth before he can stop them, and his cheeks flare with embarrassment. He hurriedly apologizes for saying something so direct and strange, but Karuko stops him, saying that his words made her happy too and shouldn't be taken back. Their eyes meet and both quickly glance away, blushing. An awkward silence hangs between them, thick with mutual embarrassment. Trying to recover, Rintaro admits that he had been worried Karuko would stop visiting the shop after finding out he was from Chidori. He thought she might not want anything to do with someone like him. To his surprise, Karuko admits that she's actually glad he's from Chidori. She doesn't explain why. Instead, she abruptly stands, saying it's gotten late and she should head home. Before leaving, she turns back with a soft smile, saying she only wanted to get to know him better. But just before she exits, Rintaro catches a glimpse of something else on her face, an expression that feels like quiet regret. Even after she leaves, Rintaro remains near their table, staring blankly as her presence fades. He glances down at her half-eaten cake and feels a pang of guilt, wondering if he said something wrong and if he had hurt her. Just then, Kyoko re-enters the shop and notices Karuko is gone. When she sees Rintaro's grim expression, she panics since it is the first time she's seen him look so down. Without pushing, she leads him back into the home section of the shop. Eventually, he shares what happened. She listens patiently, then gently taps his shoulder before suddenly flicking his forehead in annoyance, scolding him for letting Karuko walk home alone so late. Rintaro, still confused about Karuko's parting words, expresses his frustration. Kyoko stares at him in disbelief, wondering how she raised someone so dense. She tells him plainly he's doing to Karuko exactly what he hates others doing to him, judging her by her school. Karuko had never once hesitated to speak to him, never looked down on him for being from Chidori. Instead, she reached out with nothing but kindness. When Kyoko asks what he thinks of Karuko, Rintaro's mind fills with all the hurtful things people have said about him over the years. He feels unworthy of knowing someone like her. Then, without warning, he punches himself in the face, shocking Kyoko in the process as blood drips down his nose. As his mother fumbles to clean him up, Rintaro quietly reflects. The weight of Karuko's expression still lingers in his mind. He finally realizes that he had genuinely hurt her feelings. With a new sense of resolve, he thanks his mother for her words and decides to make things right the very next day. The next morning, Karuko arrives at her school early as usual, only to freeze in surprise when she sees Rintaro waiting outside the Kikyo gates. When he spots her, he steps forward and admits he had been waiting just for her. Without hesitation, he apologizes for hurting her. Karuko looks confused, so he tells her that when she left the shop last night, he caught a sad look on her face. Embarrassed, Karuko crouches down, hiding her face in her hands. She apologizes for letting him see that side of her and for making him worry. Rintaro kneels to meet her, gently trying to stop her from apologizing. In that moment, he realizes something. Karuko has always been open and honest with him. He owes her the same honesty in return, especially in explanation, so she doesn't feel guilty for expressing herself. He confesses that before meeting her, he had simply accepted that Kikyo and Chidori would always be at odds. But after learning she was from Kikyo, hearing other Chidori boys insult her school began to sting, because he didn't like hearing people talk that way about her. But now he knows he was wrong to focus so much on their schools. He apologizes again, this time for prioritizing what others might think instead of listening to how Karuko truly felt. He adds that he had meant what he said. It made him happy to know she had been waiting for him. Shocked at first, Karuko's expression slowly softens. Her bright smile returns and she tells him he's forgiven. Then, standing tall, she formally introduces herself once again and does the same for him, this time declaring that their schools don't matter. What matters is getting to know each other for who they really are. Since there's still time before class, Karuko asks for a small favor. She tells him that they should head up to their classrooms and wave at each other from their windows, since no one's around to see them yet. Once he reaches his seat, he spots her across the way as she pulls back the curtain. Her face lights up as she waves at him with both hands. He raises his own hand in response. Watching her beam with joy, Rintaro makes a quiet decision that he wants to know more about her and the warm, unfamiliar world she's begun to show him. On a particularly hot day, Rintaro and Shohei decide to head to the staff room in hopes of cooling off. But since students weren't allowed there without a reason, they needed an excuse. Thinking quickly, Shohei decides to ask about the upcoming sports day, claiming he's serious about winning this year. Inside, they pose their question to a teacher, only to be hit with unexpected news that they won't be able to join sports day at all. Shocked, Shohei demands to know why. The teacher bluntly explains that both of them are probably going to fail their midterms and would need to take remedial exams. Shohei protests, saying the results haven't even come out yet. Amused, the teacher decides to give them a chance. If they pass the retake exams and manage to win during sports day, he'll personally treat them to ice cream. Encouraged by the challenge, they return to class, only for panic to set in. Shohei, fully aware of his lackluster study habits, spirals into despair. He turns to Saku for help, but Saku flatly refuses, reminding him that he already tried tutoring them last year, and they still flunked. Meanwhile, Ayato checks on Rintaro, who admits that he isn't confident either. Just then, Shohei dramatically points out that if Saku doesn't help them, he'll end up alone during sports day. Saku doesn't even flinch, saying he's perfectly fine with that. Tuning them out, Rintaro receives a message from his mother Kyoko asking if he could invite Karuko to the cafe since they're running a big discount. Glancing at the Kikyo building across the way, Rintaro realizes Karuko hasn't dropped by the shop in a while. During class, he types out an invitation. After a bit of internal debating, he finally hits send. However, as the school day progresses, Karuko's silence begins to gnaw at him. He wonders if Kikyo students are even allowed to use their phones during class. Eventually, a message comes in and she says she's busy this month and won't be able to make it. Rintaro was surprised by the pang of disappointment he feels, realizing just how much he had looked forward to seeing her. Shohei invites him to the public library to study since their school library doesn't have air conditioning. They find a seat and begin to dig into their material, but despite their efforts, both of them still struggle. Rintaro suggests apologizing to Saku, and Shohei quietly admits he still feels guilty for failing last year, even after all of Saku's help. Rintaro tells Shohei that he's sure Saku is looking forward to sports day too, and that the idea of all of them eating ice cream together afterward makes it even better. Shohei reflects on his words for a moment before deciding to follow his advice. Before leaving, he tells Rintaro with a grin that sports day will be fun this year because Rintaro is with them. He heads back to school, determined to ask Saku for help again. While waiting for Shohei to return with Saku and Ayato, Rintaro notices a pair of girls struggling to find an open spot to study. Without a word, he gets up and offers them his seat. The girls blink in surprise, realizing what he's done, and feel a little guilty for not getting the chance to thank him properly. As Rintaro walks off, he pulls out his phone to message Shohei that he's lost their seats. But then he hears a familiar voice. He follows the sound curiously, and to his surprise, he sees Karuko helping a friend study nearby. Watching her from a distance, Rintaro realizes that she must be busy with exam preparations, which explains why she hasn't dropped by the cafe lately. He lingers for a while, quietly listening to her chat with her friends. He finds it oddly endearing that she likes to doodle in her notebooks, and hearing her speak casually, without her usual formal tone, is strangely refreshing. Then he learns that Karuko isn't just diligent in her studies, she's at the top of her class. He leaves to check on his answers, all the while thinking Karuko is amazing. Karuko, attending a prestigious and competitive school like Kikyo, is at the top, while he's scraping by at Chidori. A sense of inadequacy creeps in. Compared to her, he feels like a complete failure. He lies onto a bench defeated, telling himself he should just give up and accept the inevitable. But as he closes his eyes, Shoei's words echo in his mind. When he opens them again, Karuko is standing right in front of him, staring curiously as she greets him. Startled, he sits up and awkwardly asks why she isn't inside, accidentally revealing that he saw her earlier. Karuko doesn't seem bothered. She explains that she spotted him passing by and wanted to check if it really was him. She also mentions that she brought a bento and thought it'd be a nice time to eat. Rintaro shifts over, letting her sit beside him. As she unpacks her food, she apologizes for not visiting the cafe lately, saying she'll come by next month once she's saved up money from her part-time job. That surprises Rintaro. He always assumed she was from a wealthy family. Karuko laughs and gently corrects him, revealing she's actually on a scholarship at Kikyo. She's not rich at all, which is why she works so hard to stay at the top of her class every term to maintain the grant. Rintaro finds himself even more impressed by Karuko. She's not just hardworking, she's relentless. She even shares that she pinches herself awake in class to stay focused since she had been struggling to stay away from all-nighters. He wonders why she pushes herself to such extremes. Kaoruko explains that getting into Kikyo and staying at the top is her pride, especially since her father had initially been against her enrolling there due to the tuition and social standings of most of the students. All this time he had misunderstood her. Guilt swells in his chest for having made assumptions about her again. Swallowing his pride, he decides to take a chance. He asks if she would be willing to help him study. He admits he's tired of always accepting failure. This time, he genuinely wants to pass. He even confesses that he'll be in serious trouble if he doesn't. Rintaro expects her to decline, thinking she probably doesn't have any free time, but to his surprise, she simply offers him one of her rice balls and promises to message him when she can help. After finishing her meal, Kaoruko tells him she needs to get back to her friends, unaware that one of them, Subaru, has just spotted her talking to Rintaro. Subaru approaches, her expression sharp as she demands to know who Rintaro is. Rintaro stares at her in awe as he has never seen a girl with silver hair before. He even admits to himself that he finds her cool. But the moment she fixes him with a cold glare, he freezes. She asks if he's from Chidori. When he confirms that he is, she tells him bluntly to stay away from Kaoruko. Kaoruko tries to ease the tension, but she's cut off when Shohei, Saku, and Ayato notice and approach them. They assume they are insulting Rintaro for being in Chidori and ask them if they have any business with him. Subaru throws an insult at them, attempting once more to pull Kaoruko away. Shohei, however, pauses as if he recognizes Kaoruko and steps forward for a closer look. Instinctively, Rintaro moves in front of Shohei, blocking him just as Subaru grabs Kaoruko and pulls her away. Rintaro apologizes to Shohei, startled by his own reaction. He hadn't expected his body to react the way it did. Subaru starts leading Kaoruko away, but Saku throws out a jab, suggesting that Kikyo girls must not be that smart if they couldn't answer a simple question earlier. Subaru spins around, asking if he means Kaoruko too. Saku just smirks and tells her to figure it out herself, then mocks her silver hair. Kaoruko begins to speak up, but Rintaro steps in. He explains that he approached Kaoruko first, because she was the girl who had been waiting by the Chidori gate, and he had wanted to apologize to her. Ayato then reminds Shohei that Rintaro was talking about the time he accidentally scared her. Realizing his mistake, Shohei steps forward and apologizes. He explains it had been a rough day, but admits he shouldn't have taken it out on her. To everyone's surprise, Kaoruko bows and apologizes for making everyone from Chidori uncomfortable. The boys go silent, taken aback by her sincerity. Then, Kaoruko glances at Subaru beside her, nudging her to do the same. Subaru shifts uncomfortably. Without looking at anyone in the eye, she mutters that she'll take her leave first, then turns and walks off. Kaoruko offers one last apology to the group before hurrying after a friend. The boys watch them leave, still reeling from the unexpected interaction. Ayato breaks the silence with a chuckle, remarking that Saku forgot to give his own apology. Saku tries to defend himself, insisting that he only stepped in because they were letting Subaru insult them first. Shohei laughs and teases him for actually caring. Eventually, Shohei suggests they all go to a diner to eat and try to study. Meanwhile, Kaoruko tries to reason with Subaru. She tells her not all guys are the same, but Subaru remains stubborn, still upset that Kaoruko bowed and apologized. Out of nowhere, Subaru changes the subject and asks about Rintaro. Kaoruko blushes and admits that she thinks Rintaro is very kind, and despite everything, she believes his friends are probably good people too. Subaru grows quiet, spacing out as Kaoruko gently reminds her that they can't eat or drink in the library. Back at home, Rintaro looks over his answers, frustrated. Even after Saku's attempt to tutor them over dinner, the lesson still won't stick. He sighs and flips open his notes again when his phone buzzes. It's a message from Kaoruko asking if she can call. He replies yes, only to jump in surprise when his phone starts ringing almost immediately. He answers and Kaoruko's voice rings through, softer and slightly higher than usual. It makes his heart skip. She apologizes for Subaru's behavior but assures him her friend is actually very kind once you get to know her. Rintaro lies back on his bed, trying to tell her not to worry about it. She continues to apologize, especially about him having to cover for her. Then shyly, she admits that she thought he looked really cool when he did. Rintaro blushes furiously, accidentally pulling the phone away from his ear. He's momentarily lost in thought before Kaoruko calls for his attention again to regain his attention. She invites him to a study session that Saturday and apologizes for slipping out of formal speech. Rintaro asks why she has to be so formal with him in the first place. Kaoruko explains that she's just a customer at his family's bakery. That stings Rintaro a little. He'd assumed they were at least friends by now. Still, he agrees to meet her that Saturday. Then, after a beat of hesitation, he realizes that he wants to get to know her better, her real self, her expressions, and asks her to stop using such formal speech with him. Kaoruko is quiet for a moment, then to his relief she agrees to speak more casually the next time. She wishes him good night and the call ends. Rintaro lies on his bed, face buried in his hands, flustered as he thinks of what kind of expression Kaoruko probably has. Meanwhile, Kaoruko is just as giddy, her face red with embarrassment but glowing from the call. Sumeru, sitting alone, gazes at an old photo of her and Kaoruko from when they were younger. Her expression is unreadable. Saturday finally arrives, and Rintaro wakes up early for his study session with Kaoruko. He reaches for his phone, staring at their last conversation for a few moments before finally dragging himself out of bed to get ready. On the train ride, a few girls glance his way, visibly uncomfortable due to his height and serious expression. Rintaro doesn't notice, as he is far too preoccupied with the thought of seeing Kaoruko on a weekend, his mind spinning over what he should say, how he should act, or if he looks too stiff in his clothes. He gazes out the window. The sunlight is gentler today, warmer somehow, and it gives him the odd feeling that something new is about to begin. When he gets off the train, he realizes he's arrived way too early. But as he climbs the steps out of the station, he spots Kaoruko already standing there. He rushes over, apologizing for making her wait, but Kaoruko quickly slips into formal speech, claiming that she had just arrived. She then realizes her slip-up and smiles nervously, apologizing, only to notice that Rintaro is speaking formally too. They both fall silent for a beat before Rintaro wonders to himself if she's always looked this cute as she smiles at him for his own slip-up. They make their way to a nearby cafe where Kaoruko doesn't hesitate to dig into her food, clearly savoring every bite. She admits she's always wanted to try this place. It seemed like a perfect spot to study, and the great food is just a bonus. She urges Rintaro to eat as well, snapping him out of his daze. He had been too distracted watching her enjoy her meal since he notes this is when he notices she is happiest. He finally takes a bite and is surprised by how good it is. Once their plates are cleared, Kaoruko gets her notes ready and announces it's time to study. They decide to start with math, and Rintaro can just ask for help in other subjects when they are done. As Rintaro flips to the pages he struggles with most, Kaoruko leans in to take a closer look, but quickly realizes how close she's gotten. She backs away, apologizing for invading his space. They resume studying, though Rintaro finds it hard to concentrate with how loud his heartbeat feels in his ears. He doesn't register any of the words as Kaoruko tries to explain the formula. Eventually, Kaoruko asks why he's so determined not to fail this time. Rintaro answers honestly that he wants to join his friends at the upcoming sports festival. If he fails, he'll be stuck in remedial classes while everyone else enjoys the event. Kaoruko smiles, telling him that's a good reason and that the sports festival sounds fun. Rintaro merely chokes on his drink when Kaoruko describes that he must really love his friends. He fumbles, saying the word love just caught him off guard. Kaoruko understands, and she says she loves her friends too, describing them all as great people. Then she brings up Subaru. She's been with Kaoruko since childhood and often gets misunderstood. Her harshness stems from an incident with some boys years ago. That's why Rintaro not judging Subaru had meant so much to her. She gives him a dazzling smile and apologizes for babbling, since their agenda for the day is actually to study and not chat. Rintaro feels his entire face and neck warm, an unexpected happiness crawling into his heart. When the sun sets, they decide to leave the cafe, both happy with their progress. Before he enters, Kaoruko hands him some notes that she had specially made for him, based on the scope he had given her before. Rintaro flips through the notes, feeling a bit guilty and amazed that Kaoruko had gone out of her way to do something so nice for him while she has her own midterms to worry about. Kaoruko just smiles, explaining that she wants him to pass and enjoy the sports festival. She makes him promise to tell her about the festival when he passes, and they part ways as Kaoruko's train is near. Rintaro feels encouraged to study and tries to head inside the station to begin, but gets stopped by Subaru, who grabs his hand and asks if they can chat for a bit. Rintaro finds himself in another cafe, wondering what Subaru wants from him. She had brought him here, but has yet to say another word, leaving him in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Subaru speaks, asking if Rintaro is Kaoruko's boyfriend. This makes him drop his coffee in shock, accidentally spilling some on his hands. Subaru hands him a handkerchief, which he accepts after a few moments. She puzzles him as she seems very different from the last time they had met. He briefly wonders if Subaru actually hates him. Subaru then asks for his name and properly introduces herself as Kaoruko's classmate. Rintaro recalls her last name being mentioned the last time Kaoruko had tried to wait for him by the gates. He suddenly feels thankful that Subaru wasn't present during that time, since the scenario might have played out differently if she were. Subaru reminds him of her earlier question, and he quickly denies being Kaoruko's boyfriend, finding it hard to describe their exact relationship since they had never confirmed that they are friends or still just acquaintances. After finding out that Rintaro and Kaoruko haven't known each other for very long, she calmly asks him to stop seeing Kaoruko. He tries to explain himself that despite being from Chidori, he is more than his school and has a life outside of it. Subaru stops his explanation, saying that she is aware and believes he may even be a good person based on how he handled the situation in the library. She apologizes for her actions that day, stating that she had panicked as she has issues with Chidori and boys in general. However, she is more worried about Karuko being seen with someone from Chidori, as there are people in Kikyo, like the teachers, who hate Chidori students even more than Kikyo students do. She fears that if the teachers find out, Karuko's scholarship could be in danger. As Rintaro asks why Subaru is so concerned for Karuko, a boy suddenly tumbles over near their table. Subaru is the first to spring up, helping him to his feet and even retrieving his toy from the floor. The boy stares in awe at Subaru's silver hair, blurting out how amazing it looks. With a grateful smile and a wave, he thanks Subaru and walks off with his mother. Returning her attention to Rintaro, Subaru explains that Karuko was another person who had said nice things about her hair. Karuko had once saved her from bullies when they were young. Back then, Subaru's unusual hair color made her a target, especially for cruel boys. Karuko had stepped in, defended her, and never left her side after that. Because of that moment, Subaru considers Karuko her hero and has devoted herself to protecting her ever since. Her voice cracks as she tells Rintaro that he doesn't truly understand Karuko, her struggles, her hard work to earn and maintain her place at Kikyo. She admits that she's aware of her protective methods may push Karuko away in the future, but she's willing to risk being hated if it keeps her friends safe and happy. Fighting back tears, Subaru bows deeply and implores Rintaro to stop seeing Karuko for her own protection. Rintaro is momentarily overwhelmed. He recalls every insult he's ever heard about Chidori's students, as well as the hate Chidori has given Kikyo. It all fades when he remembers how Karuko smiled at him despite it all, telling him she wanted to know more about him. His resolve hardens and he firmly tells Subaru that he will continue seeing Karuko. Gently raising her head, Subaru's expression shifts from anguish to understanding. She had a feeling he wouldn't agree to her request. She had seen him earlier with Karuko, and the two of them had looked happy in each other's company. Rintaro offers a sincere apology to Subaru for causing her distress, places some money on the table, and leaves her to her thoughts. Subaru remains seated, guilt and defeat washing over her as she wonders what to do next. On the train ride home, Rintaro tries to study the notes Karuko gave him, but his mind won't settle. He lets out a frustrated sigh, and the two passengers beside him immediately tense, half expecting his irritation to be directed at them. He thinks back to Subaru's dedication and admits silently to himself that she's an impressive person. Her fierce loyalty to Karuko makes him wonder if he has anyone in his life he cares for so deeply. When the train stops, two girls board, scanning for seats. Rintaro stands and offers his spot to both of them without a word. The girls exchange surprised glances and whisper among themselves since they recognize him as the same one who had offered his table in the library. They approach him hesitantly and thank him for giving up the table in the library. It takes Rintaro a moment to even recall the incident, but then he remembers. He stares at them, surprised that they not only remembered but also went out of their way to thank him for something he had nearly forgotten. When the girls thank him again and apologize for disturbing him, Rintaro asks if they were able to get any studying done. At first, they appear intimidated by his serious demeanor, but eventually they nod and say they did. A gentle smile spreads across Rintaro's face as he tells them he's glad, then walks away. The girls watch him go, quietly amazed that he's a nice person despite his scary looks. Rintaro walks through a different train car, reflecting on their interaction. He finds their gestures sweet. He imagines how nerve-wracking it must have been for them to approach him, yet they still did so, determined to show their gratitude. His thoughts drift to Karuko and how she always made a point to thank him, even for the smallest gestures. He begins to understand how someone like Subaru, cautious and guarded, became friends with someone like Karuko. He realizes that Karuko's warmth must have pulled Subaru in, just as it had with him. His mind circles back to Subaru's tearful request. Refusing her had been honest, he couldn't deny how he felt about Karuko. He didn't regret the decision, but now he questions whether it had truly been the right answer. Days later, the midterm results are handed out at Chidori High. As their teacher begins calling names for the final subject, tension rises. Everyone assumes Shohei and Rintaro had failed, until the teacher raises both hands, announcing that they had actually passed. The classroom erupts in celebration, classmates wrapping ribbons around them labeled "did not fail," and even staging a fake interview to ask how they feel. Shohei states that studying ruined his eyesight, while Rintaro pauses before quietly saying that he is truly happy. His words are so earnest that some classmates tear up. Their teacher tries to hide his emotions but ends up weeping openly. Even those who failed encourage them to win at the sports festival on their behalf. In the middle of it all, Shohei and Rintaro call attention to Saku, thanking him for tutoring them. Saku brushes it off, embarrassed, but the class quickly gathers around him, praising him until he becomes even more flustered from the attention. Rintaro stays in the seat he was put in for the interview, staring down at his test score, a deep happiness blooming in his chest. He instinctively reaches for his phone to text Karuko, but stops, remembering Subaru's warning. He freezes mid-action, thumb hovering above the screen. Just then, Saku, chased by classmates, slams into Rintaro's desk, knocking it over. As Saku bends to pick up the mess, he notices Karuko's notebook has fallen open. A sticky note is stuck to one of the pages. Before Rintaro can say anything, Saku is already questioning the meaning of the note. Rintaro is frozen with shock once he realizes that Saku has seen Karuko's notebook. Soon, the rest of his friends gather around and Ayato tries to take the notebook. Rintaro quickly attempts to snatch it back, but Ayato has already seen it and recognizes the name written inside. He suddenly recalls Subaru calling Karuko by her name in the library. Saku begins to question whether Rintaro's excuse for approaching Karuko that day was the real reason. Tension begins to build in the room, drawing the attention of their classmates, who watch closely to see if a fight might break out between Saku, Rintaro, Ayato, and Shohei. Saku starts asking more questions, while Rintaro struggles to find the right words, unsure if he should tell the truth about Karuko. In the end, he simply says he doesn't want to talk about it now. Before anyone else can react, their teacher approaches and tells them to clean up, reminding them that class is about to start. As the others begin tidying up, Shohei senses the tension and drags Saku away, hoping to calm him down. Rintaro quietly apologizes to Ayato, and Ayato quickly forgives him. Still, Rintaro can't help but feel bad about how things were left with Saku. After school, Rintaro heads straight home, immediately scolding himself for being careless enough to leave the notebook where it could be seen. Thinking about the note Karuko had left inside, he remembers that he still hasn't properly thanked her. Meanwhile, Karuko is studying when her phone alerts her to a message. She opens it to find a text from Rintaro thanking her for all her help as he managed to pass all his exams and credits it all to Karuko. Her cheeks warm at the message, and she happily replies that he deserves some of the credit since he had worked hard. She ends her message by telling him to enjoy the sports festival. Rintaro reads the reply, but Subaru's warning resurfaces in his mind. He chooses not to respond and switches off his screen. Karuko notices the message has been read and dreamily wonders what kind of events Rintaro will enjoy at the Chidori Sports Festival. The following day, Shohei and Ayato worry about the situation between Rintaro and Saku. Ever since the notebook incident, the two have been ignoring each other. Ayato turns to Shohei and tells him that it's his turn to step in, since it was Rintaro who helped him and Saku make up the last time. Shohei agrees to give it a try, and though nervous, he sports a cap and invites both Saku and Rintaro to visit a batting cage so they can practice baseball together. However, to his disappointment, both of them decline the invitation. This makes Shohei start to worry about how they'll manage the upcoming sports festival, but Ayato watches his friends closely, determination flashing in his eyes. Later that day, Rintaro and Saku are still ignoring each other and walk different paths. As Saku walks home, he's suddenly ambushed by Ayato and Shohei. They invite him out to talk, but Saku brushes them off, saying there's nothing to discuss. Ayato, however, insists there is, his voice steady and serious. Surprised by Ayato's tone, Saku glances back at him but simply mutters that he's just annoyed and starts walking ahead, forcing his friends to catch up. A few steps behind, Ayato calls out to him, asking if he's upset that Rintaro is involved with a Kikyo student. Saku scoffs and admits that isn't what's bothering him. What truly frustrates him is how Rintaro doesn't seem to trust any of them. The candid admission catches both Ayato and Shohei off guard. They've always seen Saku as someone who shrugged off those kinds of things, so seeing him visibly affected takes them by surprise. Saku's expression only grows more downcast as he stops so he can talk better. His mind drifts back to their early days of friendship, when Rintaro had sincerely thanked him for always having his back. He remembers Rintaro's promise of how he'd listen whenever Saku needed someone to talk to. He thought they were equals and Rintaro could rely on him too. Shohei considers Saku's words seriously, then says that Rintaro has that kind of personality, the kind that makes you feel indebted to him just because he's genuinely kind. He adds that Rintaro likely doesn't even realize how Saku feels right now but doesn't think poorly of him. Ayato agrees, pointing out that Rintaro didn't completely shut them out during the notebook incident. He had acknowledged there was a problem, but he just wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Ayato points out that was the most honest Rintaro had been about his feelings since they had become friends, and that had made him really happy. It's the first time they've really seen a piece of Rintaro's true feelings. Ayato continues, and he believes that someday Rintaro will open up more when he's ready. Though still troubled, Saku seems more at ease. To lift the mood, Shohei casually invites them to grab ramen. Meanwhile, at his family's cake shop, Rintaro is quietly helping out by cleaning some of the empty display cases. Kyoko notices his gloomy mood and comments on it. She jokingly suggests he must have failed a test, but Rintaro flatly responds that he passed everything. She laughs, assuming he's being sarcastic, until she realizes he's serious. She looks at him as if he's grown another head. Half joking, she asks if he cheated, and Rintaro can't hide his irritation over how little his mother trusts him to earn a passing grade. Just then, the doorbell chimes and a customer enters. Kyoko greets Karuko happily. At the mention of her name, Rintaro freezes below the counter, his eyes wide in shock. Karuko apologizes for arriving late and asks if there are still any cakes left that she can buy. Rintaro, who's behind the counter, immediately tries to stay out of sight as Kyoko engages in small talk with her. Karuko happily shares that she dropped by to treat herself for doing well in her midterm exams. At the mention of midterms, Kyoko glances toward where Rintaro is hiding and tries to coax him out, thinking he should say something too. However, Rintaro quickly signals for her to help him stay hidden. Mildly annoyed, Kyoko grabs him by the arm and pulls him out from behind the counter, revealing him to Karuko. Kyoko tells Karuko that Rintaro had been there the entire time, and that he too had done well in his midterms. Kyoko nudges him to take Karuko's order, giving him a firm slap on the back before announcing she has to return to the kitchen. Karuko steps forward and says she's ready to order, but before listing anything, she raises her hands above her head expectantly. Rintaro looks confused until she explains with a cheerful grin that it's time for a high five to celebrate him passing his midterms. Rintaro's smile comes easily at first, his mood visibly lifted by her gesture. But the moment falters when Karuko adds that the high five is also for the awesome sports day he's going to have. The memory of the tense conversation with Saku flashes through Rintaro's mind, causing his smile to dim. Still, not wanting to worry her, he goes along with it, raising his hands and returning the high five, but softly and without energy. Karuko notices the lack of enthusiasm and looks at him curiously, but doesn't press. Rintaro shifts gears and begins packing her cakes. After handing her the cakes, Rintaro offers to walk her home, but Karuko politely declines, reminding him that he still has duties at the shop. As she picks up the cake box, she suddenly tells him to eat a lot if he's feeling down. Rintaro blinks, slightly taken aback. Karuko continues, explaining somewhat clumsily that eating has always helped lift her mood. She fumbles over her words, trying to cite examples of how food had always made her happy. At the sight of her trying so earnestly, Rintaro chuckles. The chuckle turns into a soft laugh, and soon he's laughing openly, as if something heavy had finally lifted from his chest. Karuko watches, puzzled at first, but then smiles at him warmly as she sees the tension leave his shoulders. Rintaro, catching sight of her gentle expression, stares at her for a moment, surprised by a sudden warmth blooming in his chest. Eventually, Karuko takes her box and promises to visit again soon to buy more sweets. Rintaro continues staring at the door long after she leaves. From the kitchen, Kyoko peeks out to check if they're still talking, only to find her son standing there looking lost in thought. Sensing something had changed, she quietly steps back, deciding to give him more time alone. Left to himself, Rintaro lets his expression soften. For the first time in a while, he allows his true feelings to surface. The warmth Karuko left behind lingers in his heart, clearing the cloud that had settled there. He reflects on Subaru's words that he and Karuko should stop seeing each other for her own good, and realizes that, for a moment, he believed it. But now, after seeing Karuko smile just for him, that belief is beginning to crack. After seeing her again and seeing her smile, Rintaro admits to himself that he can't ignore Karuko. He realizes now that she's amazing, and he's having trouble naming the feelings he has for her. Meanwhile, Karuko waits patiently for her train. Seeing Rintaro at the shop had come as a surprise, she really just went there to buy cakes. But being able to see him turned out to be the better reward. She thinks back to his laugh, finding it cute and feeling glad she managed to get such a positive reaction out of him. Her thoughts linger on their high fives, slightly worried about how he had returned it. She pulls out her phone and reopens their last conversation about the sports festival. She wonders if she should have asked if something was bothering him. Suddenly, her phone pings, drawing her attention to a new message. Back at Rintaro's place, the shop is already closed. He enters the house's kitchen, where Kyoko is preparing dinner. He notices the food looks a little more special than usual. Rintaro takes a bite and is surprised at how good it tastes. Kyoko finally admits that it's a small celebration since he managed to dodge a failing grade. She says that he's been working hard lately, so she figured he deserves some credit. Rintaro flatly says he got a 100 on one of his exams, prompting Kyoko to flick his forehead. She checks his results, still shocked at how decent his scores turned out. She says she's genuinely happy, not just because he passed, but because he's finally making an effort. She recalls how easily he used to give up as a child. More than anything, she's happy about his change in attitude. She then tells him that she knows there's something else bothering him, but she won't push since she believes he'll act on it when he's ready. She brings up how he managed to make amends with Karuko before. At first, she was worried, but after seeing how he punched himself and ran out the door, she was reminded that she raised a son who's hard on himself but always tries to do what's right. As she stands up from the table, she tells Rintaro that all she wants is for him to stay happy. Elsewhere, Subaru sits at the old playground she used to visit as a child. She remembers how Kaoruko defended her when they were younger. Soon, Kaoruko arrives and apologizes for making Subaru wait. Kaoruko takes a look around, recognizing it as the same park from their childhood. She then asks Subaru what she wanted to talk about since they were going to see each other at school the next day anyway. Subaru admits that it isn't something she can talk about at school. She takes a breath and quietly says that she talked to Rintaro. In her memory, Subaru remembers how she cried fat tears because she was worried when Kaoruko fell from the monkey bars. Kaoruko, on the other hand, had been all smiles and completely fine from the fall. She tried to reassure Subaru, explaining how obsessed she is with hanging upside down lately, which makes Subaru cry even louder with how scary it is. Sniffling, she had made Kaoruko promise to stop doing dangerous things, and Kaoruko had agreed, wiping Subaru's tears away as she promised her that she would be more careful and that Subaru was a kind person for telling her that. Subaru cries at the memory and looks into the distance, where she sees another memory just off to the side. A younger Kaoruko's form is clear in her mind. She remembers that Kaoruko had always been cute, small, kind, and beautiful. But Subaru also acknowledges that beneath all that, Kaoruko had been stubborn and strong, so strong that Subaru considers her to be her hero. She walks up to Kaoruko and hugs the small form of the younger Kaoruko from behind, quietly wishing she could be more like her. At present, Subaru admits that she spoke to Rintaro the other day. She reveals that she caught them in a cafe during the weekend and waited for the opportunity to speak to Rintaro once Kaoruko had left. She also tells Kaoruko that she asked him to stay away from her, and that she feels deeply sorry for her actions. Kaoruko stares at her in shock but quickly recovers, which surprises Subaru. Kaoruko explains that recently she discovered how much Kikyo and Chidori despise each other, and that her meddling with a Chidori student is causing Subaru pain. She says she knows Subaru acted only for her sake. Smiling, she apologizes for making Subaru worry all the time. Subaru feels cold, wondering why Kaoruko is apologizing to her at all. But as she looks at Kaoruko, she realizes she's the worst type of person. Since talking to Rintaro, Subaru had been worried that Kaoruko might find out about the confrontation. It had caused her to space out more often at school, even when Kaoruko was the one trying to get her attention. As the days pass, she realizes Rintaro has never told Kaoruko about their conversation. She wondered what would happen since she had prepared for the worst. A part of her began to feel relieved, thinking this meant she and Kaoruko would remain friends. This made her continue her days in fake bliss. However, the guilty feeling kept creeping in until she had trouble breathing. Unable to bear the crushing sensation any longer, she texted Kaoruko to meet her here, for the sake of finally freeing herself from the guilt by finally telling Kaoruko about her confrontation with Rintaro. She realizes she has been selfish and ends up apologizing to Kaoruko over and over. In that moment, she understands she has not grown from her past self. Even if her appearance had changed over the years, even when she tries to imitate Kaoruko by growing out her hair, even as she tries to appear stronger than Kaoruko, she finally acknowledges she is still the same weak girl from their childhood, one who depends on others to get by. As Subaru continues to sob out her apologies for always causing problems for Kaoruko, her thoughts begin to spiral into despair. Kaoruko notices immediately, takes hold of Subaru's hand, and eventually gives her cheeks a light slap. Smiling fondly, she tells Subaru that the two of them should spend the evening playing at the park, just like old times. Without hesitation, Kaoruko heads straight for the monkey bars and begins to hang from them. Subaru, with her eyes still swollen from crying, watches and tells her to be careful, pointing out that her clothes are nice, and it would be a shame to get them dirty. Kaoruko only smiles before continuing her way across the bars, reminding Subaru that they used to play until their clothes were filthy. She asks if Subaru still remembers the time she fell from the monkey bars. This time, Kaoruko admits that it had really hurt since she had fallen face first onto the ground, but she had cheered up because of Subaru's words. Apparently, in Subaru's panic back then, she had tearfully begged Kaoruko to send all her pain to her so Kaoruko wouldn't have to feel it. Subaru flushes at the memory, denying her own words, but Kaoruko insists that those words had made her pain vanish because Subaru was so kind. Subaru refuses to accept the compliment, insisting she isn't as kind as Kaoruko thinks. She credits Kaoruko's own kindness for saving her instead. Slightly irritated, Kaoruko buries her face into Subaru's chest and complains that Subaru always cuts herself short. She reminds Subaru that she loves her and Subaru needs to love herself as well. She tells Subaru that back then, after the fall from the monkey bars, she could have scolded her for being reckless. But instead, Subaru had shed tears for her, proof that she was a very kind girl. Kaoruko admits that knowing someone truly cared about her had made her incredibly happy. As they grew up, having Subaru by her side has continued to make her happy because she knows Subaru will always be there to support her. She hugs Subaru, telling Subaru she hopes she will one day see herself in that same light. Moving toward the slide, Kaoruko announces that she will keep reminding Subaru how much she loves and values her until Subaru finally believes it. Subaru watches her as Kaoruko slides down, realizing how honest Kaoruko is. Even as a child, she had never hesitated to speak her mind when she defended her from bullies. Meeting her at the bottom of the slide, Subaru suddenly embraces her. She explains in detail what she had told Rintaro and apologizes for not asking first. Now she wants to know what Kaoruko wants to do. Returning the hug, Kaoruko apologizes, admitting that she still wants to see Rintaro. This prompts Subaru to ask if Kaoruko actually loves him. Without hesitation, Kaoruko replies that she does and that she's serious with her feelings. Subaru smiles at the confession and decides to tell Kaoruko Rintaro's response to her request. When Kaoruko learns that Rintaro had refused to stop seeing her, her eyes widen in shock. Flushing, she buries her face in Subaru's arms. Subaru holds her closer, burying her face into her hair, quietly thinking that she's not ready to love herself yet. But as long as Kaoruko loves and accepts her, she can live with that. She will always believe in Kaoruko and silently promises to remain by her side. One day, she hopes to love the version of herself that Kaoruko says she loves. She wants to grow stronger and to stand beside Kaoruko with her head held high. After some time, they leave the park, happy that they had managed to talk things through. Kaoruko even teases Subaru for crying as it's something she hasn't seen since they were little. Suddenly, Kaoruko's phone chimes. Checking it, she sees a message from Rintaro. He says he wants to ask her something and wonders if he can call to talk about it. Meanwhile, Rintaro anxiously waits for her reply. Subaru's words have been weighing on his mind and he wants to speak with her again. But he doesn't have her contact information, so he has to go through Kaoruko and ask for her number. He worries that his text might seem strange since he had left her last messages unanswered. Then it occurs to him that Subaru probably wants to keep their conversation secret. Unsure how to bring everything up, he starts overthinking and stressing over the details until Kaoruko suddenly calls him. Panicking, he answers completely not ready for the conversation. He decides to begin by apologizing for not replying for a while. Kaoruko quickly forgives him and asks why he wanted to talk. Nervously, he says he wants to speak with Subaru, explaining, awkwardly, that it's important. Despite the fact he had sounded dodgy, Kaoruko tells Rintaro that Subaru is with her right now and she can easily pass the phone. Without even waiting for Rintaro's response, she hands her phone over to Subaru. Rintaro hears Subaru greet him from the other end. He takes a breath and says he wants to continue their conversation from the cafe as he has something to add. Subaru tells him they should talk in person and suggests meeting after school tomorrow. The next day, following the address she gave, Rintaro finds Subaru waiting by the park and approaches her. He asks if it's okay to meet while they're still in uniform. Subaru thanks him for being considerate but assures him that it's fine. Then stiffly, Rintaro asks what it would take to get her permission to keep seeing Kaoruko. Subaru answers plainly that she's not Kaoruko's mother and doesn't have the right to make that kind of decision. This flusters him, but Rintaro decides to explain himself, saying that he understands the situation between their schools, but he still wants to see Kaoruko despite the hate between Chidori and Kikyo. At the same time, he doesn't want to cause her any trouble, so he's been really lost with what he could possibly do. What he really means, he clarifies that he's asking Subaru to help him keep seeing Kaoruko, without bringing her any problems since Subaru is probably the one to know this. Subaru stares at him in disbelief, telling him that he shouldn't be asking her that kind of question, especially when she had already asked him to stay away from Kaoruko. She reminds him that she even said mean things to him and admits she's surprised he doesn't seem angry. Rintaro shakes his head, saying he's not mad at her, especially because it's clear how much Subaru cares about Kaoruko. He does admit that he was rattled when she insulted him, but he says he respects her deeply because of how much effort she puts into making sure Kaoruko is happy. He adds that he can't ignore someone who cares for Kaoruko so much, and he wants to make sure Subaru is at ease with them seeing each other because he knows that will also matter to Kaoruko. Subaru finally looks up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time during their talk. Inwardly, she feels relieved that the man Kaoruko has fallen for is such a kind-hearted person. At the same time, guilt tugs at her for being so cold to him in the beginning because Rintaro seems to care about Kaoruko in a similar fashion that she does. A small chuckle escapes her, and she calls herself an idiot under her breath. She then admits to Rintaro that she's already told Kaoruko everything they discussed at the cafe. Rintaro stiffens at this, worried about whether she included his more meaningful admissions. His face immediately reddens as he worries what Kaoruko might have thought about his reply. Sumeru doesn't give a direct answer, instead saying that it's possible for him to keep seeing Koruko if he makes sure their meetings happen far away from either of their schools. Before he can reply, a soccer ball suddenly slams into his stomach, making him double over in pain. A young boy runs up, apologizing, but then recognizes them when he approaches to retrieve the ball. He remembers them as the pair who helped fix his toy at the cafe. The boy grins and says they must be good friends since he always sees them together talking. Both Rintaro and Subaru are reminded of how much their schools dislike each other, and Rintaro quickly tries to explain that they're not really friends. The boy doesn't believe him, insisting that people who chat like they do must be friends. His friends call out to him and he waves goodbye before running off. Sumeru admits that calling them friends might be a stretch, but says that one day she hopes Rintaro will come to see her that way. He's taken aback and starts to crawl away from her as he reminds her about his school. Surprisingly, Subaru doesn't seem bothered, which makes Rintaro wonder aloud if something happened. She just gives him a gentle smile and says that it's a secret. Rintaro lies on his bed, checking his friend's group chat, and notices there hasn't been any activity lately. He thinks about what happened a few days ago and realizes it must be his fault that there is now a distance between him and the others. His eyes light up when he sees Koruko has messaged him, asking if he managed to meet with Subaru. When he confirms that he has, he also adds that he is sorry for keeping the cafe meeting a secret. Koruko responds that she is actually happy since Subaru now knows they are friends. Sports day is drawing near at Chidori, so the students are out practicing. Shohei complains about Rintaro's behavior as of late. When his friends don't understand, he points at Rintaro, who seems absent-minded. Rintaro misses every ball that comes his way and even gets hit by one during their baseball practice. Shohei grumbles that Rintaro is usually amazing at sports but terrible at studying. He even points out that Rintaro has been too fidgety in class lately. When he tried confronting him once, Rintaro avoided the topic and denied that anything was wrong. But today, Shohei has had enough. It is obvious Rintaro is hiding something. He draws Ayato and Saku closer, and soon they find themselves tailing Rintaro after school. As they follow him around from a safe distance, hoping to find out what's wrong, Shohei tells Saku to apologize to Rintaro when he gets the chance. They trail him all the way to the park, curious about why Rintaro was traveling far. To their shock, they see Rintaro meeting with Koruko and Subaru. Rintaro and the girls go to a restaurant where he apologizes for calling them over. Koruko quickly replies that she is actually glad to see him often, but freezes when she realizes what she has let slip. She blushes, remembering what Subaru told her about Rintaro's words, hinting that their feelings might actually be mutual. Trying to hide her attraction to him, she insists he not think too much about what she just said. Subaru glances at her, giving Koruko a face of disbelief, silently telling her that her feelings are far too easy to read. The group is completely unaware that Rintaro's friends are sitting at another table listening in. Shohei fumes with jealousy since it looks like Rintaro is flirting with Kikyo girls, while Saku worries about their volume, warning Ayato and Shohei to keep quiet or Rintaro might notice. He urges them to be more serious about the situation since Rintaro was involved with Kikyo girls, especially Subaru, who is known to hate boys from Chidori, based on how she reacted to them in the library. To Saku, the whole thing feels strange and needs to be figured out. They freeze when they hear Subaru's voice. Subaru cuts to the chase and asks why Rintaro needs to see them. Rintaro admits that he wants to tell the truth to his friends and be open about his friendship with Koruko and Subaru. The boys suddenly grow quiet, listening to everything at the other table. Rintaro tells the girls that he doesn't have many friends because his looks make him intimidating. He admits that at some point he accepted he would probably end up alone, but after entering Chidori, he was welcomed by his current friends. Thanks to them, he feels like he finally has a place where he truly belongs since his 3 friends have stuck with him for a long time now. He tells the girls that he admires the type of friendship Koruko and Subaru share, since they both trust and protect each other. He admits he wants a similar relationship with his friends and that he doesn't want to give up on their bond, especially since Koruko taught him not to give up so easily on things. So he wants to not give up on his friends and trust them to keep Koruko and Subaru a secret from their respective schools. He apologizes again, bowing deeply, knowing this might put both Koruko and Subaru in trouble if word got out they were involved with him. To his surprise, both are happy that he wants to tell his friends about them. Subaru is even grateful that he considered her feelings before making a decision. Koruko adds that if Rintaro trusts them, then she will also put her faith in him. She even says she's open to the idea that all of them could become friends one day. The suggestion makes Subaru worry, but Rintaro feel warm. Rintaro and the girls stay out until late in the evening and he offers to walk them to their station. Out of nowhere, Subaru lags slightly behind but suddenly blurts out that she wants Rintaro to introduce them to his friends someday. She explains that she deeply wants to apologize for her words and actions at the library. Rintaro smiles and promises to do it someday. Suddenly, a group of men approaches and asks to speak with him. The man with blonde hair mockingly apologizes for his junior's actions, which confuses Rintaro. Kaoruko notices two other men hiding behind a tree and signals for Rintaro to look. Rintaro instantly recognizes them as the same men who had tried to harm Kaoruko. He realizes they must have run to their seniors and are now back for revenge. Trying to avoid trouble, Rintaro speaks politely and excuses himself and the girls so they don't have to fight, but more men block their path when they try to leave. The blonde-haired man accuses Rintaro of beating up his juniors for no good reason and claims he looks like the type who would do that. Kaoruko steps in to defend him, saying Rintaro isn't that kind of person. The men then notice Kaoruko and Subaru, recognizing them as Kikyo girls and commenting on how cute they are. Rintaro steps in front of them, blocking the men's stares. He asks the blonde man to let the girls go home, saying he'll agree to talk with them. He glares at the man, but the blonde only smiles, insisting the girls should stay so they can talk later. One of the men reaches out to touch Subaru's hair, but Shohei suddenly appears and grabs his arm. Saku and Ayato also step out from hiding, and the three boys instruct Rintaro to get Subaru and Kaoruko away while they handle the situation. After seeing the determined looks on his friends' faces, Rintaro guides the girls away from the group. He shouts back that he promises he'll talk with them later. Saku strides past the blonde-haired leader and heads straight for the two men hiding behind the tree. He calls them cowards for clinging to the safety of their group. The men try to insult him, but Saku mocks them in return, saying it's pathetic for adults to act so childish. One of them mentions that they were the ones who injured Rintaro before. The statement stirs something in Rintaro's friends as they realize his old head injury must have been caused by these men. Ayato drops his bag, visibly irritated at the thought of what they had done. Meanwhile, Rintaro successfully gets Subaru and Kaoruko to the station. He apologizes for dragging them into trouble, but Kaoruko brushes it aside, more concerned about his friends. Rintaro reassures her that they'll be fine and that it's probably the other men who should be more worried. Suddenly, his phone rings. Seeing Ayato's name, Rintaro quickly picks up. Ayato's voice sounds cheerful as he checks in on them. Once Rintaro confirms everyone is safe, he insists on going back, but Ayato, after consulting with Saku, tells him they'll all head home for now and talk during sports day tomorrow. Rintaro hangs up and tells the girls his friends are fine, though they remain confused by how quickly things turned out that way. Elsewhere, Shohei looks over the defeated men sprawled on the ground and compliments Ayato's skill. Ayato admits that while he's a pacifist, he has no hesitation when it comes to defending his friends. One of the men stirs, trying to get up, and Ayato calmly steps forward. He tells the man that Rintaro isn't as lame as they claim, warns them not to cause trouble again, and wishes them a safe trip home. With that, Ayato suggests they leave, and Saku and Shohei follow. When sports day arrives, Rintaro's classmates cheer for him to hit a home run, but his focus is elsewhere, and he ends up striking out. His classmates groan in frustration, telling him to switch out and rest until the next round. Rintaro quietly obeys and finds a spot to cool down. He admits to himself that it's hard to concentrate when he hasn't cleared things up with his friends. He feels guilty for not being able to enjoy sports day like he originally wanted. Suddenly, a water bottle comes flying his way. He catches it and looks up to see his friends approaching with easy smiles, joking about his absent-mindedness during the last game. They try cheering him up by reminding him that they only need 2 more wins to earn ice cream. Rintaro finally thanks them for yesterday's save. His friends grin back, then ask if Kaoruko and Subaru are doing fine. After learning they are all okay, Shohei accidentally admits that they were spying on him. Rintaro suddenly realizes how they managed to show up the perfect time to rescue them. Embarrassment creeps over him as he pieces it together that they must have been tailing him since the family restaurant. His cheeks turn red, and before he can say anything, Shohei quickly drags Ayato away, leaving Saku and Rintaro alone. To Rintaro's surprise, Saku is the first to apologize. He admits he is sorry for eavesdropping on Rintaro's conversation with Kaoruko and Subaru, and for the harsh words he said the other day without thinking of Rintaro's feelings or the whole situation. Rintaro insists that he should be the one to apologize, which sparks a back and forth of them trying to take the blame. Finally, Saku points out that the real problem is Rintaro always blaming himself, even when he hasn't done anything wrong. Saku tells him to listen carefully because he won't repeat himself after today. He admits that Rintaro's words yesterday made him truly happy. Taking a steady breath, Saku confesses that the people he trusts and treasures most in his life are Shohei, Ayato, and Rintaro. Rintaro remembers what he said before, that he admired Subaru and Kaoruko because of the trust and belief they shared, and how he longed for the same bond with his own friends. When Saku pleads with him to trust them more, Rintaro's eyes burn with tears. He crouches down, trying to hide his face from Saku. Shohei and Ayato who have been keeping a distant watch, worry about how the talk is going. But when they catch sight of Rintaro and Saku together, they smile, reassured that everything will turn out fine. The group returns to the baseball game. Their class is anxious, knowing that if they don't score, they won't make it to the finals. Hope dwindles when they see that it's Rintaro's turn to bat, especially since he has been off his game all day. But Saku speaks up, reassuring everyone that Rintaro will pull through. He reminds them that Rintaro is the kind of person who rises when it matters most. As the pitch comes flying in, Rintaro swings and connects. The ball soars high into the sky, drawing gasps of amazement. Rintaro takes off, running to the bases, the sunlight warm above him as he muses about how nice the weather is. By the time he crosses home plate, his entire class surges forward, swarming him with cheers and hugs. His friends crowd around him, showering him with compliments for his comeback. For once, Rintaro lets himself enjoy it, basking in their praise. Meanwhile, a student rushes to their homeroom teacher with photos he took. In one shot, Rintaro is surrounded by his friends, surrounded by laughter and joy, perfectly capturing how youth should enjoy their days. After sports day, Rintaro and his friends go out for ice cream, that they use their own money since Shohei threw a bad pitch that allowed the opposing team to score a home run. He complains that since their teacher ended up not treating them, the ice cream isn't special anymore. He feels guilty about it, but the lady at the store notices and offers him some free takoyaki to cheer him up, which instantly works. As they eat, Rintaro listens quietly while his friends chat. Suddenly, his phone rings. When he reads the message, his eyes widen and he quickly asks his friends if they're free afterward since he wants to bring them somewhere. He leads them to a park where Kaoruko and Subaru are already waiting. The two girls introduce themselves and right away the boys do the same. Kaoruko and Shohei hit it off, with Shohei already chatting about Chidori's sports day and how their baseball games went. Rintaro is shocked that the two seem like longtime friends as they talk. Ayato notices how far the park is from their school, and Saku guesses that the choice of location is to avoid being seen by people from either of their schools. Kaoruko then gathers everyone's attention. After glancing at Subaru, she bows her head slightly and thanks the boys for saving them yesterday from the gang. The boys brush it off as nothing, but Kaoruko insists it was a great help and hands them a bag filled to the brim with snacks, wanting to give them something as thanks. The boys are immediately touched by the gesture, especially Shohei, who is amazed by how kind the girls from Kikyo are. He cries a little at the gesture. He asks if he can start eating right away, but Subaru suddenly stands up. With a serious and regretful expression, she apologizes for her actions and harsh words at the library, admitting she completely misjudged them during that time. Bowing deeply, she asks for their forgiveness, her voice carrying fear that she wouldn't be forgiven. After a short moment of silence, Shohei is the first to respond, admitting that he doesn't actually remember what she said. The boys fall silent at this since Shohei nearly started a fight because of those very words. Still, Shohei gives her a carefree smile and says it's fine, since he's used to being insulted. Sumaru looks uneasy at the admission since she and Kaoruko didn't think Kikyo insults Chidori as often. Saku then apologizes as well, admitting that he had said awful things to her too without knowing the situation. Sumaru looks at him in shock but quickly forgives him, acknowledging that both of them were wrong. Kaoruko and Rintaro exchange relieved smiles, glad their first proper meeting is going great, with both parties acknowledging their mistakes. As the boys tease Saku about his apology, Kaoruko quietly whispers to Subaru that this is the perfect time to give her gift to them. Nervously, Subaru calls everyone's attention again and hands them a fancy-looking bag, explaining that it's both a thank you and an apology gift. Inside, the boys find expensive-looking sweets and begin raving about it, since it's supposedly a big hit feature on TV. They marvel at the treats and quickly suggest having a pastry party together, inviting the girls to join. Kaoruko immediately accepts, but Subaru hesitates, reminding them again that she is from Kikyo. Shohei dismisses her concern, saying they don't care where she's from. The boys then tell her that Rintaro has already shared a lot about her and Kaoruko, and that Rintaro has reassured them that the girls are good people. If Rintaro says Subaru and Kaoruko are nice, then they will believe him wholeheartedly, since that is how their friendship works. Shohei offers Subaru a cookie from the present she handed, telling her that they should simply accept each other as they are, regardless of their schools, and just strive to get along. Subaru is touched by his words as she tentatively takes the cookie from his hand, accepting the invite. As everyone eats and enjoys the snacks, Subaru can't help but observe the boys and feel a pang of guilt for her earlier assumptions about them. She should have believed Kaoruko right away, but she is thankful that she has this opportunity to learn about them now and become their friend. As the sun sets, the group begins heading home. Shohei calls out to Subaru, coaxing her to walk closer so they can talk about the treats, since she wants their teacher to buy the same ones for them in the future. This causes Kaoruko and Rintaro to naturally drift behind the group so they can chat with each other. Koruko expresses her relief that Subaru is finally getting along with Rintaro's friends. After watching Koruko for a moment, Rintaro finally asks if there's anything she would like, since he wants to thank her for helping him study. Koruko suddenly stops, causing Rintaro to look back in surprise as she calmly requests that they go out somewhere together. Rintaro recalls what Shohei told him earlier. Shohei mentioned that he has become a more genuine and direct person lately. The memory makes him think of Koruko, and immediately, he feels grateful for her presence in his life. On the train ride to meet Koruko on the day they agreed upon, Rintaro can't help but feel nervous. He tries to convince himself that this is not a date, just a casual outing between friends. However, he has a difficult time doing so as he hears a couple in a train talk about dates, which only makes his heart race even more. When he exits the train, Koruko notices him and calls out to him, having just exited the same train as him. They greet each other and Koruko gives him a bright smile, saying she is looking forward to today since Rintaro agreed to her request. Together, they head to the aquarium, both of them amazed by the colorful fish displays. They admit to each other that it has been years since they last visited an aquarium. Rintaro recalls that during his last visit back in elementary school, he completely ignored the smaller fish just to see the bigger ones. He then asked about the dolphin show Koruko is eager to watch, and she immediately lights up, going into detail about how she has only ever seen it on television. She has always wanted to watch it live, and since this aquarium is only giving shows for a limited time, she feels this is her chance. Since the show isn't until 3 p.m., Koruko begins talking about all the other things she wants to do, such as food and rides, though she worries there might not be enough time. Rintaro laughs at her eagerness and reassures her that they have plenty of time and that she shouldn't worry about what he wants to do since today is her day. Koruko beams at him and they continue exploring, enjoying the aquarium's many displays and even its attractions since the aquarium has notable rides. They eventually stop for lunch, pleased by the hot dogs and the novelty of their tables, since they are all small aquariums filled with fish. As they eat, Koruko asks Rintaro about his sports day. Watching her closely, Rintaro begins to tell her about Chidori's events, continuing their easy conversation until it is finally time to watch the show. Before they head to the show, Rintaro excuses himself to go to the restroom, so Koruko decides to sit on a nearby bench. She scrolls through the photos they've taken together, smiling softly at herself. Today has been a wonderful day, and now she has little souvenirs to treasure. Meanwhile, Rintaro is inside the restroom, splashing water on his face as he tries to calm his heart. Koruko looks so cute today that every time he glances at her, it races uncontrollably. He wonders if she's truly having a good time, but reassures himself when he remembers her constant smile throughout the day. A sudden warmth spreads through him, confusing him even more, though he quickly snaps out of it when he recalls that the dolphin show is about to begin. When he exits, Rintaro sees Koruko with a young girl clutching her side. Koruko explains that she noticed the girl wandering around looking lost and decided to approach her. It turns out the girl is looking for her parents. Koruko introduces herself, and then the girl notices Rintaro and flinches slightly. Koruko gestures toward Rintaro, who lowers himself to the girl's level, so he doesn't look intimidating as he introduces his name. Koruko gently asks where the girl last saw her parents, and upon hearing it was near the shark exhibit, she offers to head there to look for them. She asks Rintaro to stay with the girl, whose name is Mika, in case her parents circle back to where they are. As Koruko leaves, Mika clutches Rintaro's shirt. He reassures her that they'll wait together, suggesting they sit and relax. Agreeing to rest her legs, she sits with him. Mika apologizes, feeling guilty for ruining what she assumes to be his date with Koruko. Embarrassed, Rintaro fumbles for words, insisting it isn't a date, but Mika continues chattering about how dates are fun. She admits that she wants to go on one with her crush, Daiki, from her kindergarten school. With a bright smile, she gushes about how happy she feels whenever he smiles, chattering about how amazing he is in sports and his big appetite. Rintaro freezes at her words. The warmth he felt earlier returns, and suddenly, his own feelings toward Koruko begin to make sense. Before he can dwell on it further, Koruko calls out their names as she hurries back with two adults in tow. Mika immediately recognizes them as her parents and runs straight into their arms, clinging to them with tears of relief. Koruko explains she found them since they were calling out Mika's name. Mika's parents thank both Koruko and Rintaro for watching over their daughter, apologizing if she caused them problems. Rintaro reassures them that Mika was no trouble at all, and that they enjoyed talking with her. Koruko beams at his kindness, and together they smile at Mika and her parents as they thank them and prepare to leave. But before departing, Mika dashes back to Rintaro, urging him to crouch down. When he does, she whispers with a mischievous smile that she thinks he and Koruko make a great couple. Rintaro flushes crimson, and before he can respond, Mika scampers off to join her parents. Koruko suggests that they head home since the dolphin show has already ended, but Rintaro asks her if she has some time, and if she does, they can stay, pointing out that there is still an evening show they can catch. Delighted by the idea, Karuko eagerly agrees. Before long, the final show of the day begins. They enter the venue that slowly fills up and take their seats as the announcer welcomes the audience. The lights dim, silence settles across the crowd, and a single spotlight shines on the water. Suddenly, a dolphin leaps high into the air, greeting everyone with a splash before others join in. Together, the dolphins perform a series of breathtaking tricks, earning gasps and cheers. Both Karuko and Rintaro watch in awe, their eyes fixed on the dazzling display. Karuko admits how happy she is to finally see a dolphin show live. After a pause, she turns to Rintaro and thanks him for inviting her along. She explains that she never expected anything in return for helping him and that simply being able to lend a hand was reward enough. But as her voice softens, she adds that going out with him has made her day truly special, and she has enjoyed every moment. Rintaro quietly studies her bright smile before looking back at the performance, yet his mind drifts, replaying all the times Karuko smiled at him throughout the day. Mika's words about her crush echo in his head, and suddenly everything becomes clear. For the first time, Rintaro fully understands the feelings growing inside him for Karuko. One rainy morning, Rintaro walks briskly through the streets on his way to school, his dark expression unintentionally startling several passersby. By the time he reaches his classroom, his friends are already there, grumbling about the dreary weather and wondering why Rintaro is later than usual. The door loudly opens, and Rintaro stands in the doorway for a moment before stepping inside. The commotion alerts everyone, and they watch Rintaro. He trudges to his seat, his posture unusually heavy. His friends glance over and immediately notice something off about him. When they get a better look, they all admit and tell Rintaro that his face looks even scarier than usual. Rintaro shifts uncomfortably under their comments, especially when one of them points out that he's still wearing his winter uniform even though they've already switched to summer attire. Ayato suddenly blurts out that the Kikyo girls must have also switched to their summer uniforms by now. That remark makes Rintaro stiffen, and his books slip from his bag. His friends exchange worried glances, sensing something is troubling him again. Ayato and Shoei whisper about asking him directly, but Saku convinces them to wait, stating that Rintaro will tell them when he's ready. Convinced, they decide to carry on with their usual chatter to ease the mood. Meanwhile, Rintaro is lost in thought as he picks up his notes. Ever since the aquarium trip with Karuko, he hasn't been able to push her from his mind as he thinks about their day together. His gaze drifts to the window where he can faintly see the curtains of Karuko's classroom pulled shut. He wonders whether she's studying seriously right now or happily chatting with her friends before classes start. Realizing where his thoughts have wandered, he bows his head below his seat, trying to clear his mind. But no matter how hard he tries, Karuko keeps resurfacing. He realizes just how deeply in love he is with Karuko the moment he was aware of his feeling he couldn't stop thinking of her. He snapped back to reality when Shoei calls his name. Startled, he looks up only to hear his friends asking if they can hang out at his place sometime since they have never been there. The request leaves him silent for so long that his friends grow uneasy. They quickly assure him that it's no problem if it makes him uncomfortable. Their concern strikes Rintaro since when he was younger, he'd been teased for coming from a family that runs a cake shop. According to his then classmates, it didn't suit his appearance. Because of that, he's always avoided sharing too much about his life at home. But looking at his friends now, he feels for the first time that they wouldn't judge him. Just as Shoei offers his own place instead, Rintaro finally speaks up, saying he'll ask his parents first. His friends brighten immediately, looking forward to the weekend. When the day arrives, they step into his family's pastry shop. Instead of mocking him, they are captivated by how nice the shop looks. Their eyes widen at the rows of colorful desserts and the warm aroma of freshly baked pastries. As they look around the shop, Rintaro relaxes a little. He observes his friends, feeling a bit guilty that he had originally assumed they would judge him if he told them about his family's cake shop. Just then, his mother comes through the shop, greeting the boys with her usual energy. To Rintaro's amazement, his friends respond with equal enthusiasm, chatting with her as if they've known each other for years. Saku even passes some food to Kyuko, who beams and tells the boys to eat a lot at lunch since she'll be preparing plenty. She then tells Rintaro to give them a tour of the house. He obeys immediately, leading his friends toward the house section of their shop. As they disappear inside, Kyuko heads to the kitchen, letting her staff know she'll be stepping out for a bit. They notice she seems unusually cheerful, and she admits that it's because Rintaro has finally brought friends home. Before she can continue, a customer calls from the front. She moves to serve them, only to be met with a very familiar face. Meanwhile, the boys explore the living room, curiously looking around at the decor. They even find an old photograph of a younger Rintaro with his older brother. Hanging back, Rintaro quietly admits to himself how awkward it feels to have friends over for the first time. Suddenly, his mother calls out for him. Rintaro heads to the stairs and is startled to see Koruko and Subaru standing there. Koruko greets him cheerfully, while Subaru tries to follow but remains nervous. Kyuko explains that the two had only come to buy cakes, but since she knows they are all friends, she invited them to stay for lunch only if the boys don't mind. Ayato immediately agrees, while Shohei gestures for them to come in further, which causes Saku to scold him for acting like he is the owner of the house. Everyone begins to settle again, though Kyuko takes a moment to personally thank Subaru for being friends with Rintaro. Koruko apologizes for intruding, but Rintaro assures her it's fine. When he catches her smile, he suddenly remembers their time at the aquarium. A furious blush spreads across his face. Kyuko is surprised to see such an honest expression on her son's face, but her expression shifts into a knowing smile. Happily, she excuses herself to return to the kitchen so she can start preparing their lunch. The boys quickly begin helping out with the lunch preparations, filling the house with lively conversation. Realizing the situation she's found herself in, Koruko calls Subaru over to quietly check on her outfit, whispering that she hadn't expected to be spending time inside Rintaro's home, and is worried over how she looks since her outfit might be weird and her hair isn't special. Subaru fondly tells Koruko that she looks as cute as always, which mildly irritates her. Rintaro can't help sneaking glances at her, inwardly happy that she's inside his home. To distract himself, he lightly hits Saku. Soon, lunch is served and an impressive spread of food is laid out across two tables. Everyone digs in happily, but Rintaro can't help noticing how much effort Kyuko puts into pleasing his friends. She then informs Rintaro that she'll step out to check on the shop, but reminds everyone that they're welcome to get seconds if they're still hungry. Rintaro feels grateful that everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. During the meal, Shohei suddenly asks why Rintaro decided to dye his hair and pierce his ears. Rintaro admits he's been doing it since 7th grade. This makes the group curious over his reason for dyeing his hair. He shyly tells them that it is a dumb reason, but when Koruko chimes in that she would also like to know why he dyed his hair, he shyly confesses that he simply thought it was cool. He says the reason might sound dumb, but for him, it had been a big deal at the time since he didn't have any friends in school. He recalls the day that made him decide to change his appearance. His parents brought him to a cake shop. The place was foreknown, and at first he didn't think much of it since his family also owns a similar shop. But after his first bite of cake, he realized it was something different. His eyes wandered around the shop, taking how different it is from his family's, until they landed on the kitchen window. Inside, he saw a cheerful baker with blonde hair and a visible piercing. Rintaro thought he looked genuinely happy, and he wanted to be like him and assumed copying his appearance was a good place to start. On the way home, he asked his parents if he could dye his hair and get piercings. Expecting rejection since he was aware they deal with customers, he was stunned when they agreed without hesitation. For the first time, he felt seen, and the moment brought tears to his eyes. Of course, changing his appearance only made others avoid him more, but by then, he had already given up on connecting with people. He gets so absorbed in his story that he doesn't notice everyone staring at him. When he finally realizes, he quickly apologizes for souring the mood. But Shohei immediately reassures him, saying the kids at his old school must have been blind since he would have jumped at the chance to be Rintaro's friend if they had met earlier. Shohei rises for seconds and Koruko follows. Before heading to the kitchen, she tells Rintaro she feels the same way that Shohei does, and that she's happy to be friends with such a kind person like him. Rintaro stares at her in amazement for a moment until Koruko asks if he'll also be getting seconds. He shyly says he will, and Koruko goes to the kitchen to get him his share of food. As the group continues eating and chatting, they remain unaware that Kyuko has overheard the entire conversation. Hidden from sight, she fights back tears as she remembers the day she herself decided to dye her hair blonde and get piercings. Her husband saw right through her and realized she was making all these changes together for Rintaro's sake. When he questioned her, she told him that she had seen Rintaro cry the other day, and since that incident, she hadn't been able to forget how broken and resigned her son looked. Light had only returned to his life when they went to the cake shop the other day, so when Rintaro pleaded to change his appearance, she couldn't find it in herself to refuse. It was also the first time Rintaro had ever asked for something for himself. She knew Rintaro worried that his appearance might scare away customers, so to put him at ease, she decided to do it first, showing him that it didn't make much of a difference in customer service. Her husband looked at her and said he hoped Rintaro would someday realize how much Kyuko was sacrificing for him, but Kyuko replied that it was fine. What she truly hoped was that someday someone would come to accept Rintaro as he was. Watching her son now laughing and enjoying himself with friends feels like a dream come true. She finally decides to step into the room, presenting them with a wide assortment of cakes. Shohei and Koruko's eyes light up at the sweet treats, and Kyuko hands the cakes to Shohei. asking him to put them in the fridge so they can enjoy them later. As she heads back to the shop, Rintaro catches up with her by the stairs. He thanks her without any explanation, making her eyes widen. Rintaro then returns to his friends while Kyuko's eyes well up with tears. She puts on her cap and hypes herself up before going back to work. Later that day, they gather in front of the television, eating cake and playing games. Shohei cheers proudly as he scores a win against Saku, teasing him for losing. Ayato reminds him that they were actually battling over who wouldn't get last place. He then compliments Koruko for scoring really well, and she credits her family since she sometimes plays with them. Rintaro was surprised she placed second, and when she gives him a bright smile in reply, his face heats up. Shohei then asks if Rintaro helps out in the cake shop, hoping he's free enough to join summer activities with them. When Rintaro confirms he isn't too busy, Shohei starts suggesting things they can all do as a group. They decide a beach trip with fireworks is great for the summer and would like Koruko and Subaru to join them. Koruko is delighted to be included in their plans, and Subaru agrees to join as well, but reminds herself that she needs to study hard since exams come before summer. The boys freeze, suddenly remembering they still have one last hurdle to overcome before they can enjoy their break. Subaru quickly apologizes for ruining the mood, and with teary eyes, Shohei slowly turns to Saku. Saku pales, refusing to help as Shohei begs him to tutor them. Koruko then grabs Subaru's arm and suggests they all study together sometime, which surprises Subaru and the three boys. As promised, the group meets up again, this time at a restaurant to study. As the girls decide what to order, Ayato and Saku can't help but notice how close Rintaro and Koruko seem. Once they finish their meals, they prepare to study, but Shohei falls asleep before they can even begin. Rintaro explains that Shohei had tried to study the night before, which is why he is so tired. Koruko then gets an idea and leans over the table to talk about the restaurant's desserts with him. She suggests that they set a goal for this study session, and if they reach it, they should reward themselves with sweets. Shohei instantly lights up and agrees, and the group can't help but think they look like mother and child. Koruko then turns her attention to Rintaro, offering to help him. Rintaro appreciates the offer but declines, saying that he wants to try studying on his own for now. Ayato and Saku mention that Rintaro has been studying a lot during his lunch breaks. Embarrassed, Rintaro admits he doesn't want to rely on Koruko too much, but promises to ask for her help when he doesn't understand something. Koruko smiles kindly at him, proud that he is moving forward and trying hard. As everyone begins to study, Shohei can't help but be amazed at Subaru's workbook, which is much larger than the ones used at Chidori. He shows her how flimsy and thin their workbooks are to prove a point. After looking at it, Subaru notices that the Chidori workbook is actually the one she had used back in middle school. A little later, Rintaro gets stuck and turns to Koruko for help, but finds himself more focused on her expression as she studies. He completely misses her explanation, so Koruko patiently offers to explain it again from the beginning. Subaru also runs into a problem, but when she notices Koruko is busy with Rintaro, she decides to wait and ask later. Shohei notices and offers to help, but when he reads her workbook, he is completely lost. He moves to return the workbook, but Saku decides to look at the question Subaru is having a hard time with. When Subaru points it out, he quickly solves the problem by writing down the equation and solution almost instantly. Subaru is amazed and tries to ask how he solved it, but Saku only gives vague answers. This prompts Ayato to finally tell Saku that he is actually terrible at explaining problems. Saku is shocked by the comment and tries to confirm if the others feel the same. His friends all wear uneasy expressions and attempt to cover it up by insisting that they simply don't understand because they're dumb. Worried, Saku earnestly tries to explain the solution again to Subaru and Koruko, but both end up completely lost with his explanation as well. Saku ends up horrified and embarrassed that he can't teach both girls, even though they are already smart. He wants to stand and leave, but the group desperately tries to keep him from going by bribing him with desserts. The next day, the boys gather in the classroom, ready to see their scores. To the immense relief of Shohei and Rintaro, they manage to pass all their exams again. Shohei pranks around with his test scores, thrilled that he can finally enjoy summer without worrying about school. Two of their classmates, however, are disappointed that Rintaro and Shohei won't be taking supplementary classes with them like usual, and beg them to share their secret. Shohei smiles confidently and reveals that they had help from a talented teacher this time. The classmates immediately assume it must be Saku and rush over to his desk to ask for his help. Saku is flustered by the sudden attention and irritated with Shohei, but luckily doesn't have to respond to his classmates' requests as their teacher arrives and asks the class to settle down. The teacher congratulates them, saying that with finals out of the way, summer break is just around the corner, and that they will be able to enjoy themselves soon. The class teases him for not sounding like a worried teacher. Their teacher admits that while his class may be full of goofballs, all of them are genuinely good-hearted people. Smiling warmly, he asks what plans they have for summer. Students immediately begin chiming in about their activities, but one concerned student asks about summer homework. The teacher reassures them, saying that while he is glad they care about their studies, it's just as important to enjoy their youth. He reminds them that summer is where the best memories are made and encourages them to live it to the fullest. The class cheers, though he quickly reminds those who failed that they will be busy. After school, a group of classmates approaches Rintaro's group and invites them to do something fun together. Since no one can decide, they ask Rintaro to pick an activity for them. Rintaro suggests bowling since it's something they can all enjoy as a group. As they walk toward the bowling alley, Rintaro reflects on how much closer he has grown to his class since the sports festival. He admits to himself that he never expected to have this much fun since he had given up on making friends before. More than that, he realizes he has started wanting things in his life and has been motivated lately to keep doing his best. Quietly, he acknowledges that Kaoruko might have been the start of it all. While walking, one of his classmates suddenly points out the Kikyo girls across the street. Rintaro looks over and spots Kaoruko happily chatting with Subaru and a few other girls. Shohei also notices and is about to call out to them, but Saku and Ayato quickly stop him, reminding him that they can't associate with the girls openly in front of other students. It would only cause problems for Kaoruko and Subaru at their school. Their classmates recognize Kaoruko as the girl who once waited outside their gate. Rintaro's friends manage to hide the truth from the rest of the boys and the group moves on. Still, Shohei notices that Rintaro is staring after Kaoruko and snaps him out of his daydream. As they catch up with the others, Shohei hangs back with Rintaro and casually asks if he's dating Kaoruko. Rintaro immediately turns red and denies it, but when Shohei presses him about whether he likes her, Rintaro struggles to give a straight answer. Shohei tells Rintaro that he's far too obvious. He is also certain that Ayato and Saku have also noticed. The two ahead pretend not to hear, but Rintaro realizes his secret crush isn't as hidden as he thought. For the first time, it even occurs to him that Kaoruko herself might already know. Shohei assures him not to worry, boasting that he's great at planning surprises. Before he can go on, Saku drags him away, leaving Ayato to quietly reassure Rintaro that they'll keep his crush safe before he joins Saku and the rest of the group. At the bowling alley, Shohei and Saku's team erupts in cheers when Shohei lands a strike. Saku is up next, and though everyone hopes he'll fail, to their dismay, he also gets a strike. Saku looks genuinely confused since they're on the same team, but to ease the tension, Shohei blurts out that Saku is terrible at video games. The mood instantly lightens and the guys start inviting Saku to a game session instead. Meanwhile, Rintaro's turn approaches. His slouched posture worries his teammates. Rintaro then announces that he picked the wrong ball and that his fingers are stuck. When he finally switches to the right ball, his throw rolls straight into the gutter. Embarrassed, Rintaro apologizes while crouching on the ground. The opposing team bursts into taunts, proud of their early lead. Riled up, his teammates argue back. In the middle of the commotion, Rintaro excuses himself, saying he'll buy some drinks. At the snack section, he broods over his poor performance, especially after realizing the losing team owes lunch to the winners. He wonders why everyone insists on saying he's dating Kaoruko. He admits to himself that dating is still something he doesn't really understand. To him, just seeing Kaoruko smile feels like more than enough. Ayato taps him on the shoulder, breaking his thoughts. Rintaro steps aside from the soda machine, realizing Ayato also wants a drink. He apologizes for messing up earlier, but Ayato reassures him it's fine. Ayato tells him that the real blame falls on Shohei for bringing up Rintaro's feelings for Kaoruko in the first place. The comic catches Rintaro off guard and he chokes on his drink. Ayato tells him to relax, assuring him that Shohei didn't mean anything by his observation and that no one thinks badly of him. Nervously, Rintaro asks Ayato what he thinks dating should be. Ayato pauses for a moment before cheerfully admitting that he has no idea, which immediately puts Rintaro at ease. He explains that he's never dated anyone, so he doesn't really have a clue, but warns Rintaro not to ask their classmates the same question, otherwise they'll end up interrogating him. He adds that he's sure none of their classmates have ever dated a girl anyway. Then, taking the question more seriously, Ayato explains that usually people start dating when they realize they like each other, but he feels it can go deeper than that. To him, it's okay for people to date even if they don't completely understand what dating means. Ayato then mentions that what surprises him more than the question itself is the fact that this is the first time Rintaro has ever asked him for advice. Rintaro hesitantly asks if it's true that he's being very obvious. Ayato agrees but tells him he actually feels happy about it because Rintaro is learning to be more open about his feelings, especially with them. He recalls being happy when Rintaro shared the story of dyeing his hair and piercing his ears, since to him, it was a good sign that Rintaro was beginning to trust them and see them as close friends. Rintaro suddenly straightens and firmly confirms that he does trust them, but quickly apologizes, realizing he might have sounded arrogant. Ayato just laughs and tells him not to worry about it. He goes on to say that Rintaro doesn't need to stress too much about Kuroko, but reassures him that no matter what he decides to do about his feelings, he has an ally. Touched, Rintaro thanks him sincerely. Just then, two of their teammates call them back since it's Rintaro's turn, and their score isn't looking good. When they return, they see Shohei celebrating another strike with his team. Rintaro is impressed by the other team, but Ayato suddenly sounds colder as he tells Rintaro that they should win, especially since Shohei had caused them problems. He admits he wants to see Shohei frustrated and argues that it's only fair, considering how much Shohei's antics had thrown Rintaro off his game. Rintaro smiles at him and agrees. Later that evening, Rintaro notices activity in their group chat. When he opens it, he finds Shohei desperately begging Ayato to call off the bet. Ayato immediately replies that he's looking forward to tomorrow's free lunch. Rintaro stares at his phone, recalling how Ayato had stunned the other team by scoring enough strikes to secure their victory. The memory brings a quiet smile to Rintaro's face as he admits to himself that he truly enjoyed today. Just then, another message pops up. The message is from Shohei, this time asking everyone what their summer plans are. Rintaro's thoughts instantly drift to Kuroko, but he quickly shakes them away, reminding himself that Shohei had meant the whole group would enjoy summer together. Even so, his mind lingers on Kuroko and how she had helped him and everyone else study for exams. He wonders if it would be strange to do something just for her. Exiting the group chat, he notices a new message from Subaru. He is so shocked that he ends up dropping the phone on his face. When he opens it, he learns that Kuroko's birthday is soon, and that Kuroko is too shy to bring it up herself. During class, Rintaro's thoughts drift elsewhere. He keeps wondering what he could give Kuroko for her upcoming birthday. Ever since he received Subaru's message the night before, the question has consumed him. Other than knowing that Kuroko loves cake, he realizes he doesn't actually know much about her. He's always wanted to learn more, but since realizing his feelings, that desire has only grown stronger. His daydream is abruptly cut short when the teacher calls on him, asking him to read a passage aloud and to wake up Shohei, who has dozed off in the seat in front of him. As he nudges Shohei awake, Rintaro's mind continues to wander back to Kuroko's birthday. Later that evening, once home, he decides to ask Kyoko if she knows of any delicious cake shops nearby. Kyoko looks slightly offended, as though he's suggesting her cakes aren't good enough. Rintaro quickly explains that he wants to get Kuroko something different for her birthday. Since she's already familiar with their shop's cakes, he thought it would be more special to give her something new. Kyoko is surprised that Rintaro is so interested in celebrating Kuroko's birthday. Instead of recommending another shop, she suggests he try baking a cake himself. The idea catches Rintaro off guard. He insists he doesn't know how to make one, but Kyoko tells him he can ask his father, Kichiro, for help. Rintaro hesitates, knowing how busy Kichiro always is in the kitchen. As if to prove the point, they suddenly hear a noise on the stairs. Looking over, they see Kichiro collapse on the steps. They quickly move him to the couch. Rintaro, concerned, tells Kyoko that he can't possibly trouble Kichiro with a request now. But Kyoko explains that Kichiro overworks himself by choice, as he genuinely enjoys spending time in the kitchen since he is a cake nerd. She even reveals that Kichiro was the one who baked the cakes for Rintaro's friends the other day, and that he had looked truly excited while doing it, but also looked too exhausted to be introduced to his friends. Eventually, Kichiro stirs awake, greeting his family with a weary good morning, despite it being dinner time. As he blinks away exhaustion, Kyoko gently asks if he feels well enough to eat. Rintaro watches his father, torn between worry and the request he wants to make. Then he remembers how happy Kichiro looked when he heard his friends had enjoyed the cake. Gathering his courage, Rintaro finally asks his father to teach him how to bake one. Kichiro studies his son carefully before responding. Instead of asking what type of cake Rintaro wants to make, he asks what feelings Rintaro wishes to express through the cake he will bake. Rintaro answers honestly that he isn't sure what he wants to convey. But as his mind fills with thoughts of Kuroko, he admits to Kichiro that all he really wants is for her to be happy. Kichiro smiles at his son's answer. When he learns that there are only 2 weeks left until Kuroko's birthday, Kichiro tells Rintaro that he will undergo special training under him until Kuroko's birthday. He adds that since Rintaro will be learning directly from him, he expects nothing less than an amazing cake. Kyoko smiles, relieved that Rintaro is finally opening up to Kichiro. She watches as the two head into the kitchen to begin training. That evening marks the start of Rintaro's cake lessons. Alongside his father, he studies recipes and considers what kind of cake would be best for Kuroko. The days are exhausting, but little by little he begins to improve. At school, the effects show. One day, his friends gather around him, worried about how pale and tired he looks. Despite his exhaustion, there's a fierce determination in his eyes that shocks them. They remind him that PE is coming up and wonder if he'll even make it through class since he looks ready to collapse. Rintaro explains that he has been staying up baking cakes. His friends instantly brighten at the mention of cake, excitedly saying how much they want to try it. Tired, he refuses, insisting he isn't ready for anyone to taste them yet. He gets up to wash his face to prepare for PE, only to bump his head on the doorframe on his way out. Meanwhile, in Kaoruko's class, her friends approach her and talk about wanting to celebrate her birthday since it falls on the first day of summer break. Subaru is happy that Kaoruko is receiving attention, but remembers that Rintaro was planning something in secret. She suggests to the group that they celebrate Kaoruko's birthday the day after instead, explaining that she cannot join them since she has plans and wants to be part of Kaoruko's celebration. Kaoruko agrees with the plan and thanks her classmates for wanting to celebrate with her. The girls immediately shower her with hugs and praise, leaving her flustered but touched. Later that evening, Rintaro returns home and notices a message from Subaru confirming that Kaoruko should be free on her birthday. He suddenly realizes he never asked Kaoruko herself about her plans. Panicking, he quickly sends her a message, casually asking if she's free to hang out on the 22nd, without mentioning that he knows it's her birthday. Kaoruko replies almost instantly, typing so quickly that her messages are filled with typos, but she confirms that she's free. Rintaro is relieved that he can give her the cake on the day. He slaps himself awake, determined to make a perfect cake by the end of his training so he can give it to her. Kaoruko reads over his messages, her heart racing when Rintaro replies that he wants to give her something. She tries to convince herself it isn't for her birthday, since he shouldn't know when her birthday is. She then realizes something and figures out that Subaru must have told him. She immediately calls Subaru, who asks if Rintaro has contacted her. This more or less confirms her suspicion that Subaru told Rintaro about her birthday. She tries to sound mad about it, but Subaru knows that Kaoruko is actually very happy that Rintaro is doing something for her. Smiling through the line, Subaru tells Kaoruko that she likes it when Kaoruko talks about her time with Rintaro, and she hopes Kaoruko will share the details about her birthday with her afterward. Hanging up, Kaoruko falls back on her bed, giddy that she'll get to spend her birthday with Rintaro. On the day of Kaoruko's birthday, Rintaro wakes up early to begin preparations for the cake. He prepares the batter under Kichiro's strict supervision, then moves on to the cookies and hard icing decorations. Once the cake is baked, he slices it into layers, fills each with fruit, then covers the whole thing with icing and adds the finishing touches. Kyoko and Rintaro anxiously wait for Kichiro's verdict. When Kichiro tells him he passes his standards, Rintaro celebrates and Kyoko offers to get box ready so he can leave. Before exiting the kitchen, Rintaro thanks Kichiro once more. Once Rintaro is gone, Kyoko moves to take a better look at the cake. Kichiro tells Kyoko he's happy that Rintaro has started to smile for real over the recent months. Later, Rintaro walks to their meeting place to wait for Kaoruko. He glances at the bag holding the boxed cake, wondering if it was a good idea to bake one for her. Noting that he arrived early, he decides to use the time to mentally prepare himself, but to his shock, Kaoruko is already waiting at the spot. He approaches her, and Kaoruko is surprised to see him early. Timidly, he greets her with a happy birthday before handing her the bag. Kaoruko receives it with a smile, delighted to get something from him. She asks if it's okay to open it, but Rintaro tells her it's probably better to wait until she gets home since it's a cake. At the mention of cake, her eyes light up and she grows excited. Glancing around for a seat, she suddenly remembers the park nearby. Kaoruko leads Rintaro to the park, admitting that it's her favorite place and the same one she and Subaru used to play in during their childhood. Kaoruko admits that she had always hoped for an opportunity to bring Rintaro here to share more fond memories, and this feels like the perfect occasion. As they sit down on a bench, Kaoruko carefully pulls out the clear box. Inside is a very cute, delicate-looking cake decorated with small cookies and icing details. She is instantly charmed by the cake and quickly notices that this isn't something she has ever seen in the shop before. For a moment, she wonders if it's a new flavor her family hasn't released yet. Shyly, Rintaro explains that it isn't from the shop at all. He baked it himself because he wanted to give her something different, something she hadn't tried before. He also wanted to put more effort into the gift so that it could properly convey how grateful he is to her. Kaoruko's lips curl into a smile, her chest warming at his honesty. She asks if it's alright if she calls in later tonight, assuring him that she already knows she'll enjoy it. The two eventually part ways, and as Kaoruko walks home, Rintaro feels satisfied with his present. At the very least, he was able to make Kaoruko smile on her birthday. When Kaoruko arrives home, she notices her family isn't back yet. She hesitates, wondering if it's alright to try some of the cake without them, but the temptation quickly overwhelms her. She snaps a few photos of the cake on the table before cutting out a slice for herself. As soon as she takes a bite, memories of Rintaro's shy but earnest expression from earlier flash in her mind. With a soft smile, she admits to herself that the cake is delicious. Later that evening, Rintaro lounges in the living room, half watching a comedy show, but his frown is deeper than usual. Kyoko and Kikiro watch him with concern, both aware that he's still worrying about the cake. When his phone suddenly rings, Rintaro bolts upright and dashes for his room, leaving his parents staring after him and admitting how easy he is to read. In his room, he sees Karuko's message asking him if she can call him now. He quickly types back that it's fine, nervous about what she might say. Almost immediately, his phone rings. Her cheerful voice greets him, and she reveals that she really enjoyed the cake. Rintaro lets out a heavy sigh of relief and sinks to the floor, weeks of cake training finally paying off. Karuko gushes that the flavor was gentle and warm, almost comforting, and that it made her heart lighter with just one bite. Excitedly, she adds that she shared it with her family, and everyone loved it. Her brother, however, ate nearly half, so she didn't get as much as she wanted. Rintaro chuckles and promises to make her more cakes in the future. The promise makes Karuko excited since she has become a fan of his cakes. Eventually, they say goodnight. Returning to the living room, Rintaro informs his parents that Karuko liked his cake. Kyoko sighs in relief and Kichiro smiles with pride, certain that Karuko truly found it delicious. Rintaro tells his parents that he wants to work at the cake shop over the summer, explaining that he wants to improve his baking before making another cake for Karuko. Kichiro takes him seriously, warning that he'll be much stricter than before and that he expects Rintaro to work in the shop every day. Kyoko flicks him on the forehead, telling him to stop joking. She encourages Rintaro to enjoy his summer and says he can help out in the shop anytime he feels like it. With a determined look, Rintaro insists that he wants to help every day when he doesn't have plans with his friends. Kichiro then asks which part of the cake Karuko liked the most, saying he wants to use Rintaro's cake as inspiration for a new recipe. Kyoko smiles at them, knowing that Rintaro's happiness right now is thanks to his friends. Meanwhile, the group chat for summer explodes with updates about everyone's plans. As promised, Rintaro and his friends go on a beach trip together. Shohei is the first to jump out of the train, eager to breathe in the smell of the ocean. Saku and Ayato tease him for being so excited, while Rintaro feels embarrassed since he hardly got a wink of sleep from excitement, since he gets to spend the trip with Karuko. Once the entire group is off the train, Shohei eagerly takes the lead, determined to buy fireworks, while Subaru quietly trails behind everyone. When they reach the town, Shohei and Karuko both light up at the sight of all the food stalls, quickly forgetting about fireworks. The rest of the group follows without complaint, already knowing food comes first with Shohei. They stop in front of a sandwich stall where Shohei and Karuko coax everyone to check out the wide assortment. Ayato and Shohei notice Subaru being unusually quiet, so they try to draw her in, encouraging her to look closer so she can pick something she likes. Nervous, Subaru asks them to just pick something for her instead. The boys agree, but Karuko watches her with concern. After buying her own sandwiches, Karuko shows Subaru her small assortment of snacks and smiles warmly, suggesting they share. Subaru visibly relaxes and agrees. Meanwhile, Rintaro and Saku head off to buy drinks. On the way, Saku asks about Rintaro's work at the cake shop. Rintaro explains that he's helping out whenever the group doesn't have plans, admitting that this time it was his idea since he actually enjoys baking. Saku smiles, suggesting Rintaro should sell cakes during a school festival. As they walk, Saku slows in front of a donut stall. Rintaro notices and suggests buying one, knowing how much Saku loves donuts. Before Saku can reply, Shohei catches up and immediately teases him, asking if he's going to buy one. Saku refuses, reminding them they already bought so many sandwiches and it would be a waste not to finish them. The boys, however, see through him. Ayato insists he should just be honest and that no one will make fun of him, but Saku points at Shohei's smug grin, complaining that Shohei has been teasing him about it since they arrived. Karuko joins them, amused to learn that Saku likes donuts and casually mentions that Subaru loves them too. Shohei offers to buy some for Subaru, but she quickly turns down the offer, flustered by the attention. The group decides to move on since they still haven't bought drinks or fireworks. Subaru lingers behind, eyes fixed on the donut stall. She wants one badly, but can't bring herself to say it aloud. Saku turns around and catches Subaru's eyes lingering on the donuts. They finally reach the beach, where Shohei is the first to dash toward the water, yelping at how cold it is. The others gradually follow, stepping into the waves to soak their feet. Rintaro is shocked at the icy touch of the water, while Karuko moves beside him, smiling as she enjoys the feel of the wet sand beneath her feet. Subaru stays on the shore, hesitant to join. She admits to herself that she loves watching Karuko and her new friends enjoy their time together. She finds herself wishing to join them, but she fears she will only ruin the fun the more she gets involved. Karuko turns to call Subaru over, but stops when she notices the troubled look on Subaru's face. Soon after, the group settles down to eat their sandwiches. Shohei is the first to finish and immediately announces he's going back to the water. Kaoruko encourages the boys to continue playing while she stays back to finish her food with Subaru. As they sit side by side, Kaoruko and Subaru fondly watch over the boys as they splash around. Kaoruko gently asks if something is bothering her. Subaru hesitates, then realizes Kaoruko already has seen right through her. She admits she has troubles and quietly asks for a favor. A short while later, Kaoruko takes Subaru's hand, leading her toward the boys. As they approach, Subaru lets go, summoning her courage. She calls out to each of them by name, her voice slightly trembling but determined. She admits she had been looking forward to today, but has also been feeling heavy-hearted. With difficulty, she explains that she is uncomfortable around men. Shohei immediately looks ready to apologize, but Subaru continues before he can fully say he's sorry. She tells them about an incident in her past that left her fearful of men, causing her to avoid them for as long as she could. But after spending time with Rintaro and the others, she realized she had begun to warm up to them. Even so, she still feels nervous at times and unconsciously pulls back. Subaru apologizes again, but adds that she truly wants to stay with them and enjoy this summer together. She recalls what she and Kaoruko had talked about earlier, as Kaoruko had pointed out how much fun the boys were having. Looking at them, she realized she wanted to be part of that fun. She turns her attention back to Rintaro and apologizes, saying she wants to be everyone's friend right now and not wait until later. Saku suddenly splashes her with water, shocking everyone. Subaru assumes she has insulted him, but Saku clarifies that he wouldn't have gone on this trip if he didn't consider her someone close. Shohei interrupts, asking Saku to dumb down his words a little because he doesn't understand. Saku explains again that he has always thought of Subaru as a friend. Shohei grins at the explanation and chimes in that he feels the same way, that he has always considered her his friend. Ayato and Rintaro voice the same thoughts. Rintaro teases Subaru lightly for being even more uptight than he is. Seeing the timing is perfect, Kaoruko decides to finally get Subaru's feet into the water, so she playfully pushes her forward. But Subaru trips, only managing to break her fall by thrusting her hands in front of her. The group rushes to her side, worried she might be hurt. But Subaru lets out a light laugh, signaling that she's fine. Kaoruko offers her a hand and Subaru gets up, relieved and happy to be part of the group. Suddenly, Shohei gasps when he looks toward the horizon, making everyone else turn. They are left in awe at the beautiful sunset ahead of them. Shohei decides it's the perfect time to set up the fireworks. As the boys and Kaoruko prepare the fireworks, Subaru watches them from afar, her stomach growls, and Saku notices her discomfort. He rummages through his bag and hands her a pack of donuts, commenting that she should eat more since she barely touched lunch. Leaving her to eat, Saku goes back to help the others. As Subaru munches on the donuts, she realizes that while she is still uncomfortable around them, she is taking the right steps to overcome her fears and finally fit in the group. Kaoruko calls her over and Subaru looks up to see her and the boys waiting for her so they can start lighting the fireworks. Bravely, she steps forward, noticing the heaviness from earlier has vanished. They play with the fireworks, each of them wearing bright smiles. Subaru herself feels carefree for the first time that day and admits she is having a grand time. They end with a fountain as the finale, but Shohei is extremely disappointed with how short it lasts. He suggests buying more, but the others try to convince him that what they had was enough. Kaoruko offers him sparklers, but Shohei insists he wants the bigger ones. Subaru also chimes in that she wants more fireworks, so the group decides to head into town to buy more and also get more drinks. Rintaro and Kaoruko choose to stay behind to watch over their things. Rintaro notes how quiet it suddenly feels now that most of the group has left. Kaoruko calls his attention, suggesting they light the last of their sparklers while waiting. He agrees, and soon the two of them are holding glowing sparklers, their soft light crackling in the night. Kaoruko admits she feels a little bad that the sparklers have been forgotten, even though they sparkle so beautifully. The two sit in comfortable silence until Kaoruko speaks again, thanking Rintaro for helping Subaru earlier. She admits she's relieved that everyone in Rintaro's group cares so deeply about Subaru. Rintaro confesses that he was surprised Subaru opened up at all. Kaoruko agrees, saying it was a surprise for her as well. She admits it is rare for Subaru to share her feelings, especially with men. She explains that ever since Subaru's past troubles, she has closed herself off from almost everyone. But since meeting Rintaro and the others, she has started to relax and even smile more. Kaoruko then points out that the changes started after Rintaro and Subaru had started talking to each other. As Kaoruko thanks him, Rintaro stares at her, processing her words. He doesn't even notice when the light goes out on his sparkler until Kaoruko lights and offers him a new one. As he tentatively takes it, Rintaro thinks he doesn't deserve such praise. He doesn't believe he's done anything extraordinary. The truth is, the reason he was able to support Subaru and why his bond with his friends has deepened is because of Kaoruko. She made him believe he could be a good person. In a whisper, he thanks her. Kaoruko blinks in surprise. Then, with more determination, he raises his voice, wanting her to truly understand how grateful he is. Kaoruko quickly faces forward to hide her reddening cheeks, but she quietly thanks him back, adding that she had a lot of fun today. Rintaro agrees that today was indeed fun. Inwardly, he savors the moment. He realizes how much closer they've grown and considers every moment with Kaoruko precious. Without meaning to, he lets slip that he doesn't want their time together to end. Kaoruko freezes, stunned before turning to face him. Rintaro realizes too late what he's just said and panics, insisting she forget it. But instead of teasing him, Kaoruko lights him another sparkler and gently asks where they should go next since summer has only just begun. Kaoruko begins to excitedly talk about having a barbecue and attending the summer festival together. She admits that it does feel lonely when something good has to end, but that just gives them more reason to make plans to look forward to. As she talks about how fun it will be to create more memories, Rintaro watches her dazzling smile. Without thinking, he blurts out that he likes her. Realization hits him too late, and he stammers out an apology, but Kaoruko has clearly heard him. Both of their faces turn bright red, and they struggle to form words after the admission. Suddenly, Shoei appears from behind them, and they quickly put some distance between each other. Shoei notices their flushed faces, and Rintaro hurriedly explains that it's just because of the heat from the sparklers. Shoei seems to accept the excuse and proudly shows off the fireworks they bought to continue the fun. Stobaru notices Kaoruko hasn't moved from her spot and calls out to her. Kaoruko snaps out of her daze, quickly cleans up, and joins the others. As the fireworks light up the night, both Kaoruko and Rintaro's thoughts are elsewhere. Eventually, their day at the beach comes to an end and everyone heads home. On his way back, Rintaro chastises himself for confessing so suddenly, especially since Kaoruko had looked so unsettled afterward. He doesn't understand why he blurted it out when he had promised himself never to let his feelings for her out. Yet somehow, he feels a strange sense of relief now that the truth is out. He resolves not to trouble her and swears to make things right. Meanwhile, Kaoruko and Subaru walk home together, Subaru noticing that Kaoruko looks disoriented and tries to grab her attention. When she succeeds, Kaoruko's phone suddenly rings and Kaoruko panics when she sees the caller ID is Rintaro. On the day of the summer festival, Rintaro waits nervously by the street as waves of people pass him. Slowly, Kaoruko approaches, softly calling his name. When Rintaro takes in her appearance, he realizes that this day will be one that he will remember for years to come. They had ended up at the festival together because of the evening after their beach trip. That night, Rintaro had gathered his courage to call her. It took a few rings, but Kaoruko eventually answered. Their conversation began politely, but Rintaro soon brought up the confession he had blurted out when they were alone. He apologized for putting her on the spot so suddenly, then asked if they could talk about it properly sometime. After a pause, Kaoruko considered his words and suggested they meet at the festival, adding that she would really like to spend that day with him. Now standing face to face, Rintaro struggles to find the right words since he isn't sure if he should talk about the confession now. Sensing his unease, Kaoruko suggests they look for food first. They stop at Candy Fruit's stall, each munching on their own treat. He asks gently if she is enjoying it, and Kaoruko gives him a bright smile in reply. He points out some candy stuck on her cheek, chuckling when she panics while trying to brush it off. She pouts at him for laughing at her, but soon both of them are laughing together. Kaoruko then spots some girls with shaved ice. When Kaoruko flashes him another radiant smile, he thinks to himself that seeing her smile is something he could never grow tired of as they walk towards the shaved ice stand. After getting shaved ice, Rintaro ends up with a brain freeze. They continue wandering through stalls, eating takoyaki, and playing festival games. At one of the booths, Rintaro manages to win her a small bunny plush from the shooting game. As they walk, they both admit that they may have eaten too much, so Kaoruko suggests they sit down to rest. Rintaro almost denies needing a break, but he notices the way she slows her steps, as if her feet are hurting. He decides to take her up on the offer for a break so Kaoruko can rest. They find a bench and Rintaro opens bottles of soda for them. He asks if her feet are okay. Kaoruko starts to give a cheerful reply, but pauses when she notices how closely he is watching her. Both of them face forward, the air around them heavy with unspoken words. Rintaro finally admits to himself how happy he feels that she made time for him tonight. He knows he owes her a proper confession for allowing him to spend time with her. Calling her name, he waits until she turns toward him with a gentle smile. Gathering his courage, he tells her directly that he likes her, repeating it again to make sure he is understood. He explains that at first he thought it would be enough to just remain friends, and that simply seeing her smile would make him happy enough to continue their friendship without any development. He also adds that there was the matter of their different schools and the worry of causing her any trouble with her scholarship. During their beach trip, Rintaro had become painfully aware that his time with Kaoruko would eventually come to an end, just like their sparklers that evening. The thought of that left him feeling lonely, and in that moment, he felt the need to confess. He realizes now that his confession comes from a greedy place in his heart, but he cannot hold it back any longer. He wants to spend more time with her, and if that means becoming a couple, then he wants their relationship to be just that. Facing her again, Rintaro admits that he always wants to be with her. With his heart pounding, he asks if it's okay for them to start going out. There's a pregnant pause that causes Rintaro to panic as he begins fumbling out an apology for being selfish. Kaoruko gently stops him, saying he isn't selfish at all. Instead, she asks if he remembers the day they met. Instantly, Rintaro recalls seeing her at his family's cake shop, happily stuffing her face with cake. But Kaoruko tells him that wasn't their first meeting and that they had talked before that event. She also admits that during their first actual encounter, Rintaro had saved her. She admits the real reason she kept going back to the shop was because of him, and the cakes were a nice bonus. Kaoruko then recounts the memory. It was a freezing winter evening last year. She had left behind part of her winter wear and was tiredly making her cold and long journey through the streets, desperate to get home. By chance, she found herself drawn toward Rintaro's family cake shop. Though she had loved sweets, she hadn't been able to enjoy them for a long time. Yet that night, something pulled her inside. She ordered a slice of cake, and when she took her first bite, warmth seemed to fill her whole body. It was the first time in a while she had tasted something so delicious. Overcome with emotion, she began to cry quietly at the table. Rintaro, who had been nearby, noticed and approached to comfort her with gentle words. When Kaoruko asks if he remembers, Rintaro nervously admits he doesn't and tries to dig through his memory for it. She reassures him that it's fine, since it is even better that he doesn't remember. She knows he would have shown anyone the same kindness, because that's simply who he is. But for her, in that moment, his kindness had saved her. Finally, she addresses his confession. She brings up his worries about causing her problems due to their schools. She tells him to push those aside because they had never met due to their school to begin with. They had met in a homey cake shop outside of school, and he had given her courage and joy she didn't think she could find again. Looking at him with flushed cheeks, Kaoruko admits the truth that she is also in love with him, and she begins to tell him how she has grown to love him. Since she first visited the cake shop, every time Kaoruko went, she made sure to take extra care with her makeup. Her clothes were always the cutest ones she had owned, and she even curled her hair nicely. She would always check herself in the mirror before she left for the small pastry shop, always hoping to talk to Rintaro again. She eventually became a regular at the store, and people who worked there already knew her name. On one particular day, she decided to have the cakes to go. She caught a glimpse of Rintaro in the kitchen, and her heart leaped with excitement, only to sink with disappointment when she realized he wasn't at the register, so there wouldn't be a chance of them speaking that day. The cakes were always delicious, but she mostly came in hoping for another chance to chat with Rintaro. Kyuko finished putting Kaoruko's order together and joked that she was already so close to trying everything on the menu. Kaoruko smiled brightly and complimented the shop's cakes, and Kyuko thanked her, saying her husband would be happy to hear such kind words. Kaoruko was shocked, so Kyuko looked back at the kitchen and told her that her husband was in the kitchen wearing the black uniform, and the boy next to him was their son, who occasionally helped out in the shop. She added that their son was a freshman in high school. Kaoruko was even more surprised to learn that the boy she had been longing to talk to was actually the shop owner's son, and that they were the same age. When she realized she was staring, she quickly excused herself, promising to return. She went home giddy from discovering who the blonde clerk really was, but now she found herself wondering what his first name might be. With the drive to learn more about him, Kaoruko continued visiting the cake shop a few times each month, but still never managed to speak with Rintaro. One evening, as she walked by the familiar street coming from a doctor's appointment, she couldn't help but crave the cakes in her usual shop. Without meaning to, she found herself in front of the shop, but quickly noticed she wasn't dressed as cutely as usual. Still, she decided to go inside, figuring the chances of Rintaro being in the shop were practically zero. When she entered, Ritsuko greeted her warmly, asking if she would have her cakes to go. This time, however, Kaoruko decided to eat in the shop, saying that she was absolutely famished. She ended up ordering a lot and took a seat in the corner near the cash register. Ritsuko, delighted by her appetite, excused herself when a staff member called her back into the kitchen to meet someone. Kaoruko decided to enjoy her cakes in peace, loving the small shop and its delicious offerings. A flash of Rintaro's smile crossed her mind, but she quickly buried it, choosing instead to simply enjoy the shop as it was. Just as she took the last bite of her cake, something caused her to look towards the cash register, and her eyes suddenly met Rintaro's. It was so unexpected that she ended up choking, and Rintaro rushed over to bring her some water. Part of her felt frustrated that of all days their meeting had to happen when she hadn't bothered to dress up, and that she had choked on cake. Rintaro, meanwhile, stared at her intently without any sign of recognition, which made her bolt from the shop in embarrassment from being looked at. In truth, she had nearly given up on ever seeing or talking to him again, but that encounter sparked something inside her. Dressing up cutely and making sure she looked presentable, she returned to the shop the next day. She spoke to Ritsuko at the counter and nervously asked if Rintaro was around, admitting that she wanted to see him that day. When he appeared, she decided then and there that she wanted to know more about him, his name, and his world. She even declared that she would treat him. The next day at school, Kaoruko found herself struggling with her studies. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the time Rintaro had saved her from the thugs. She felt guilty that he had gotten hurt and wondered when she might stop by the shop again to see him. To clear her mind, she stood up from her seat and moved the curtains to let the sunlight in, thinking it was safe since it was still early for anyone to be around. But when she did, she caught a glimpse of Rintaro in the Chidori building just before he hurriedly closed the curtains on his side. She slowly let the curtains down and slid onto the floor in giddy happiness. Kaoruko realized that since Rintaro was a Chidori student, it meant he would always be close by. That day, she felt that her love story would soon take off. After recounting her version of their meetings, Kaoruko steps forward and turns to face Rintaro. With newfound confidence, she introduces herself properly, then introduces him as well, similar to how she had initiated that they were friends. She reminds him that their schools do not matter and that she is grateful he shared his feelings with her. With a bright smile, she declares that she loves him and that it would be wonderful if they started seeing each other. Rintaro stares at her for a long moment before his feet finally move toward her. He remembers how Kaoruko had once waved so enthusiastically from her building and how much his life had changed because she had allowed him into her world. Standing in front of each other now, they both smile, ready to begin a new chapter in their relationship. Thanks for watching. That's the complete season. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it.